Chapter 641. Something was spying on them? Xing Tiandao, Qiu Hu, and Si Mingyan were shocked and looked around anxiously. The starry sky was beautiful and resplendent. Looking around, they could not see any other living beings. Zhou Xuanji did not tell them where it was because he was not sure either. When the red dragon began to move forward, they could sense a pair of eyes staring at them. Zhou Xuanji was already used to the feeling of being spied on, so he would not be wrong. Don't be alarmed. We are already working toward the void boundary. The surrounding space seems to be unchanged, but the Great Tao's power has already opened up a space-time tunnel. Next, this feeling of being spied on will continue and grow more intense. Emperor Red Dragon's voice came, which made the four even more curious. Great Tao's power? Space-time tunnel? Qiu Hu, Si Mingyan, and Xing Tiandao opened their eyes wide in astonishment. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. There's Great Tao's power around? He immediately calmed his mind and began to sense the Great Tao around him. Soon he sensed the existence of the Great Tao. I knew it. Zhou Xuanji felt delighted. Within the range of his divine sense, an invisible passageway appeared around him. It twisted and turned and was quite wide, looking like a long dragon. Compared to the red dragon that was tens of thousands of meters long, it was much larger. He would build a bridge with his divine will and connect with it with his Tao will. Boom. Zhou Xuanji felt an explosion in his mind, and he fell into a mystical state. Xing Tiandao and the other two turned to look at him. They tried their best to remain calm, but their hearts were filled with astonishment. How could he be enlightened like this? Emperor Red Dragon turned back to look at Zhou Xuanji. Her gaze was subtle and thoughtful. Her gaze made Xing Tiandao and the other two anxious. They were afraid that she would interrupt Zhou Xuanji. Now, Zhou Xuanji was their only hope of survival. They did not want anything to happen to him. The fusion of Tao wills made Zhou Xuanji forget everything around him. It was as though his soul had drifted out of the universe. It was a wondrous and indescribable feeling. Sometime later, Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes slowly. A pair of mountain-like dragon horns and Emperor Red Dragon's silhouette appeared before him. The wonders of Tao are unfathomable. Zhou Xuanji sighed in his heart. Just like that, his Tao will grew many times stronger. Qiu Hu transmitted his voice and asked, "You're finally awake. You closed your eyes for half a year. I thought you would continue." Half a year? Zhou Xuanji was a little dazed. He felt that it was only an instant. Not bad. You're only a level 1 overlord saint, yet you're able to touch the level of the Great Tao. It seems like you're really a genius. No wonder the primordial ancestor gave you those eyes. Empress Red Dragon's voice floated over, her tone full of praise. Zhou Xuanji asked, "Are there many people who comprehend the Great Tao in the Kunlun origin court?" Xing Tiandao, Qiu Hu, and Si Mingyan turned to look. They were very curious about the Great Tao, but they were too embarrassed to ask. Facing Emperor Red Dragon, they could not be as casual and bold as Zhou Xuanji. Of course there are many, but there are very few who have truly grasped the Great Tao. If one can completely grasp a Great Tao, their status in the Kunlun origin court will rise accordingly. Emperor Red Dragon's reply made Zhou Xuanji look forward to the Kunlun origin court even more. He hoped to exchange pointers with more experts so that he could become stronger. We have already reached the emptiness realm. Get ready to fight at any time. The Water Emperor has locked onto us. Emperor Red Dragon's words made everyone nervous. Zhou Xuanji was not too nervous but began to savor the Great Tao. After a while, the Red Dragon stopped suddenly, and the surrounding tunnel disappeared. Emperor Red Dragon, you have brought the wrong people. Hand them to me and I will let you live. Or else, you will not be able to return to the Kunlun origin court. The Water Emperor's voice came from the front. His tone was filled with a cold smile. Emperor Red Dragon stood up and snorted coldly, "Trash like you wants to stop me?" She raised her arms and countless red lotuses appeared behind her. They were like waves of fire and quickly formed into a gigantic flaming lotus. It was bewitching and filled with danger. Zhou Xuanji scanned the Water Emperor with his divine sense and captured him. In his divine sense, he could see that the Water Emperor was enveloped in a powerful Tao will. The Water Emperor's Tao will was blue, which was different from his. His Tao will had yet to form, which showed the difference between them. Emperor Red Dragon, don't you understand who we are working for? The Water Emperor's face turned dark as he spoke with a murderous aura. He did not have a good impression of Emperor Red Dragon because they had fought before. The fact that Emperor Red Dragon could still escape under the joint attack of several void boundary emperors showed how powerful she was. Facing the Water Emperor's threat, Emperor Red Dragon laughed in disdain. The flaming lotus behind her suddenly exploded into countless petals that shot toward the Water Emperor. The red dragon under her feet charged forward with unstoppable momentum. The Water Emperor exploded immediately, turning into countless water droplets that flew in all directions. Emperor Red Dragon, just you wait. If I let you return to the Kunlun Origin Court, I will resign from my position as one of the 13 Void Boundary Emperors. The Water Emperor's voice resounded across the starry sky. He was suppressing his anger. Emperor Red Dragon snorted coldly and continued forward. Zhou Xuanji sensed the spacetime tunnel formed by the Great Tao appear again. The Red Dragon continued forward at full speed. Next, I will hand you over to a senior. You must obey him completely. After we enter the Kunlun Origin Court's Universe Pass, I will pick you up. Emperor Red Dragon's voice came into everyone's ears, which made them frown. This was different from what they had agreed on. Chiu, who could not help but ask, "Can you guarantee that senior won't harm us?" Emperor Red Dragon snorted coldly. "No, but if you follow me, I might abandon you. I can't risk my life to protect you. You should understand this. If you follow that senior, your chances of survival will be higher." Her tone was very bad, scaring Chiu so much that he didn't dare to say anything. Zhou Xuanji did not say anything. Right now they did not have the right to choose. As the four of them waited anxiously, they arrived at another universe filled with silver light. There were no stars in the surroundings, only countless silver flowers that refracted beams of silver light. The spirit chi here was very thin, close to the Milky Way spirit chi. A huge silver tree appeared in front of them. It had countless branches, and all the silver flowers in the universe originated from this tree. The Crimson Dragon was very fast and quickly arrived in front of the huge silver tree. Zhou Xuanji saw an elder lying on a tree branch. He could see him because this elder was wearing a rainbow-colored, dazzling robe. He was 3,000 meters tall and was quite eye-catching on the tree. "Signorine Xen, I need your help," Emperor Red Dragon said with a respectful tone. This elder was called Old Ancestor Inshin. His power surpassed the Void Boundary 13 Emperors. Along the way, Emperor Red Dragon warned them many times not to anger Old Ancestor Inshin. Old Ancestor Inshin controlled hundreds of universes, and each of them was bigger than the Milky Way. He was like the ruler of the universe, controlling everything in this silver flower universe. Chapter 642. On the giant tree, Patriarch Inshin opened his eyes and glanced at Emperor Red Dragon. He said nonchalantly, "Little girl, I may be on good terms with your grandfather, but I can't be ordered around by you." Empress Red Dragon frowned and fell silent. At this moment, Old Ancestor Inshin glanced at Zhou Xuanji and the others. He sat up suddenly. "That kid over there, come here." Old Ancestor Inshin pointed at Zhou Xuanji, and a formless force dragged Zhou Xuanji into his right palm in the blink of an eye. At that moment, Zhou Xuanji felt as if he was Sun Wukong, and he was being held by Buddha Tathagata. He did not resist because the difference in strength between him and the enemy was too great. Old Ancestor Inshin sized Zhou Xuanji up with glowing eyes. Xing Tiandao, Chiu Hu and Si Mingyan were all worried for him. Empress Red Dragon smiled mysteriously. "Okay, little girl, you can go now. I will do my best to send them to the Kunlun Origin Court," Old Ancestor Inshin said, staring at Zhou Xuanji. Empress Red Dragon immediately teleported Xing Tiandao and the other two away and left quickly on the Red Dragon. In the blink of an eye they were gone. The Silver Flower universe fell into silence. Old Ancestor Inshin's gaze was extremely invasive. Zhou Xuanji pretended to be afraid and lowered his head. After a long while, "Kid, there's a mysterious and powerful force hidden in your body. What is it?" Old Ancestor Inshin asked with a mocking smile. Zhou Xuanji pretended not to know. He really did not know. Was it his eyes or the Supreme Legendary Sword System? Old Ancestor Inshin looked down at Zhou Xuanji and said, "Follow me. I will send you to Kunlun Origin Court. But Kunlun Origin Court is not as good as you think. It might even be hell." His words gave Xing Tiandao, Chiu Hu and Si Mingyan a bad feeling. Ever since they left the Heavenly Law universe, all the news they heard about the Kunlun Origin Court was bad. Even Empress Red Dragon said that the Kunlun Origin Court wasn't as beautiful as they thought. Was the Kunlun Origin Court really not a good place? "Senior, can you tell us about the Kunlun Origin Court?" Zhou Xuanji looked up and asked. Since Old Ancestor Inshin had no ill intentions, then he should take the initiative. The more they understood the Kunlun Origin Court, the more confident they would be. Old Ancestor Inshin chuckled and said, "I can't say that. The words of the Supremes are the law. Anyone who dares to reveal the existence of the Kunlun Origin Court will be punished by heaven and earth." Supremacy? Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes. Could the sovereign be the supreme ruler of the Kunlun origin court? I'm going to concoct pills. After I'm done concocting pills, I'll bring you to the Kunlun origin court. During this time you can wander around this universe. Old ancestor Yinshin waved his right hand and sent Zhou Xuanji out. He then turned into a stream of silver light and disappeared into the giant tree. Qiu Hu immediately hugged Zhou Xuanji to steady him. Sheng Tiandao and Si Mingyan followed suit. They began to communicate via voice transmission. I can't help but feel like there's something fishy going on. That old man must have his eyes on the thing in your body. What should we do? Is he testing us on purpose? Isn't he afraid that we'll run away? Damn it, I shouldn't have saved that woman. Sigh, we can only take it one step at a time. Hearing their discussions, Zhou Xuanji did not say anything, but he was thinking about this in his heart. All of them were old demons who had lived for countless years. How could they not see the clues? Old ancestor Yinshin must have a motive for taking them in. It was definitely not because of Emperor Red Dragon. Most importantly, they did not hear the discussion between Emperor Red Dragon and old ancestor Yinshin. Could it be that they also used some kind of sound transmission technique to communicate? They could not figure it out, so they could only give up. Zhou Xuanji asked Qiu Hu to hold onto the 24-rank deep black lotus while he entered it to check on the situation in the other realms. For some reason he had a feeling of unease, as though he would die at any moment. So he wanted to see his family more. He came to the demon realm and found that Xian Xianghua was cultivating. The demon realm was considered peaceful. Looking at her peaceful face, Zhou Xuanji could not bear to disturb her. He came to earth again and saw that Zhou Shaoxian, Jiang Shui, Lady Zhao Xian, Su Shu and Yang Dabong were all living happily. He did not dare to appear before them. If it was in the past, he might have told Jiang Shui about his situation. But now he could not. It was not easy for everything to return to peace. How could he disrupt it again? Finally he came to Emperor Sword Court in the Lotus Realm. He saw that Xiao Jinghong, Zhao Congjian, Huang Lianxin, Beixiao Wangjian, and the others were all training hard, and he could not help but smile. Great. All of this is great. He regained his fighting spirit and returned to the Silver Flower universe straight away. Qiu Hu returned the 24-rank deep black lotus to Zhou Xuanji and asked, "You are back so soon?" Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, "I just need to go back and take a look." He stored the 24-rank deep black lotus into his body. What I envy the most about you is not your power or talent, but the fact that you have so many people around you who you care about and protect, Qiu Hu said faintly. He, who was always carefree, rarely showed a sorrowful expression. Si Mingyan said with a smile, "Yeah. I've lived for so long and had wives, concubines, love and children. But it's a pity that I abandoned them all. Back then I was determined to become more powerful. But now I regret it and can only smile bitterly." Sheng Tiandao said with disdain, "The path of a powerful cultivator has always been lonely. Forcefully bringing along the people you care about will only put them in a desperate situation." Zhou Xuanji listened to their conversation and could not help but laugh. Different people had different daos, which could be fully reflected at this moment. He should not be hesitant. He should move forward with determination. He should not be hesitant or lost. Okay, I need to continue my Dao enlightenment. I hope that we can enter the Kunlun origin court together, Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. After that he sat down and closed his eyes. The other three spread out and did not disturb him. Zhou Xuanji quickly entered the state of Dao Will. A while later, he was pleasantly surprised. He realized that the barren Silver Flower universe was filled with a great Dao that was even more profound than the heavenly law universe. If not for his previous enlightenment in the space-time tunnel, he would not have noticed it. This great Dao was deeply hidden and was silver in color. He tried to use his Dao will to contact it but was repelled again and again. He did not give up and continued to try. Time passed just like that. After 3 months he still did not succeed. Fortunately he was calm and did not panic. This day, old ancestor Yinshin suddenly appeared on a tree branch. There was a silver cauldron in front of him that was as tall as him. "That brat, come here," he shouted. Zhou Xuanji, who was in the state of Dao Will, was awakened and was immediately pulled over. Sheng Tiandao, Qiu Hu and Si Mingyan stood up and looked over anxiously, fearing that something might happen to Zhou Xuanji. Old ancestor Yinshin chuckled, "I made a pill. Help me try it." Zhou Xuanji heard him and was shocked. "I knew it. This old brat was waiting here. Can I refuse?" he asked. Chapter 643. Do you think you can refuse? Old ancestor Yinshin looked down at Zhou Xuanji and asked with a smile. His eyes were curved into two lines like a cunning fox. The threat was evident in his words. "Where's the pill?" Zhou Xuanji asked. Old Ancestor Yinshin lifted his hand and placed him on the top of the cauldron. Zhou Xuanji looked down and was shocked. He saw a gigantic pill with a diameter of 1,500 meters lying in the cauldron. It was silver in color and had many colorful patterns on its surface. "Damn, I'll die from eating this." Even as an overlord saint, Zhou Xuanji could sense the immense energy within. He looked at Old Ancestor Yinshin and asked, "If you want me to die, just say it." Xing Tiandao, Qiu Hu and Si Mingyan flew up and looked down. Their expressions changed drastically as well. "So big, don't worry. I will not harm you. This might be your serendipity. Don't you want to try?" Old Ancestor Yinshin snorted and looked as though Zhou Xuanji should be thanking him. Zhou Xuanji took a deep breath and immediately used his Tao will. He enveloped the gigantic silver pill with his saint energy and compressed it with his Tao will. Old Ancestor Yinshin nodded in satisfaction and praised, "Your understanding of the great Tao has already taken shape, and you can even use it simply. Impressive." Zhou Xuanji rolled his eyes and was not very happy. He focused on the gigantic silver pill. Soon, it shrunk to the size of a pellet and flew into his hand. He put the silver pill near his mouth and hesitated again. "I won't die from overeating, right?" "Don't worry. If you die, I will save you. I will also protect your enchanted artifact that contains the universe." Old Ancestor Yinshin urged impatiently. Zhou Xuanji could only swallow the silver pill. Boom! A violent impact tore his white robe apart. The entire tree shook and Qiu Hu and the other two were sent flying backward. They vomited blood and almost fainted. Old Ancestor Yinshin looked excited and mumbled, "You didn't explode and die. Overlord Saint indeed. Very good. Very good." Zhou Xuanji felt that his body was about to explode. The indescribable pain twisted his face, and his body expanded exaggeratedly. He immediately used the 9-soul fusion technique and the sword fusion technique, and the strength of his body instantly increased. Old Ancestor Yinshin's smile disappeared. He frowned and looked at Zhou Xuanji carefully. A berserk energy rampaged in Zhou Xuanji's body. He activated world internalization to absorb this energy. Just like that, his body began to transform. All the meridians in his body were under attack, constantly breaking and regenerating. Old Ancestor Yinshin waved his right hand and threw Zhou Xuanji into the giant cauldron. Qiu Hu grew anxious and said angrily, "You want to refine him into medicine?" Patriarch Yinshin turned around and glared at him. "I like refining elixirs, but I don't like eating elixirs. Why would I refine him? I said that I would take you to the Kunlun Origin Court, so I won't go back on my word." Qiu Hu could only give up. Old Ancestor Yinshin sat in front of the cauldron and waited quietly. Qiu Hu, Xing Tiandao and Si Mingyan also meditated, but they couldn't focus on cultivating. After a long while, a voice resounded throughout the Silver Flower universe. "Signorine Xan, can we come in and search?" This voice belonged to the Flame Emperor, startling Qiu Hu and the others awake. The Void Boundary 13 Emperors chased them all the way here. I'm busy. Go search somewhere else." Old Ancestor Yinshin snorted angrily. He didn't care about the Flame Emperor at all. After that, the Flame Emperor's voice did not come again. "So domineering," Qiu Hu mumbled. He heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that Old Ancestor Yinshin could protect them for now. Xing Tiandao said with a frown, "I have a bad feeling about this." Si Mingyan nodded. They felt that the Void Boundary 13 Emperors might be planning something since they didn't retreat. At this moment, Old Ancestor Yinshin stood up and took out a giant silver cover to cover the cauldron. He then carried the cauldron on his shoulder. "You three come over here and land on my shoulder. Get ready to run." Old Ancestor Yinshin shouted. The three came back to their senses and quickly landed on his shoulder. Shortly after, Old Ancestor Yinshin tore open the dimension and stepped into it. Not long after he left, several figures appeared out of thin air in the Silver Flower universe. Among them were the Flame Emperor and the Water Emperor. He escaped. As expected, there's something wrong with this old thing. He would definitely attack us when we investigate him. He has a good relationship with the Sacred Red Divine Range. He will surely help Emperor Red Dragon. Chase. We can't let Zhou Xuanji escape. After a brief conversation, they tore open the dimension and chased after Zhou Xuanji. At the same time, Old Ancestor Yinshin sped through the space-time tunnel. Xing Tiandao and the other two stood on his shoulder and looked back from time to time, fearing that the Void Boundary 13 Emperors would catch up. Senior, are you afraid of the void boundary 13 emperors? Qiuhu asked. Si Mingyan glared at him. Is this stupid tiger courting death? Why would I be afraid? It's just that the forces behind them are powerful in the Kunlun origin court. I have to reduce the trouble, understand? Old ancestor Yinshin replied unpleasantly. He really wanted to throw Qiuhu out. Xing Tiandao frowned. So, entering the Kunlun origin court was equivalent to entering the enemy's base camp? Suddenly, countless souls appeared in front of them and attacked them like a storm. Old ancestor Yinshin's body radiated with a silver radiance to defend against these souls. When the souls collided with him, their souls would scatter and dissipate into space and time. What's this? Qiuhu cried out in shock. Even he felt a chill down his spine when he saw so many souls. These souls had different expressions. Some were in pain, some were excited, some were sad, and some were laughing wildly or crying. They were like the epitome of all living beings. Those who are eliminated from the Kunlun origin court. Their souls will flow into different universes through the spacetime tunnel. That's how you guys were born. Old ancestor Yinshin replied, which made the three even more horrified. They came from the Kunlun origin court? Will those souls that you destroyed resurrect? Si Mingyan asked. He looked around and felt sad for some reason. Old ancestor Yinshin chuckled, of course not. This is their weakest moment. The Kunlun origin court has plenty of souls. You guys have to work hard in the future or else this will be your end. The three's expressions changed. Could there be some kind of test in the Kunlun origin court? Otherwise, why would old ancestor Yinshin call them eliminated? Soon, the torrent of souls disappeared and there was nothing in front of them. But a horrifying murderous aura came from behind, and they looked back in shock. They saw the Flame Emperor, the Water Emperor, and the others rushing over. Qiuhu counted. There were 10 of them in total. His eyelids twitched and he shouted, Senior, faster. Old ancestor Yinshin scolded, You think I don't want to? Do you know how heavy my cauldron is? It's enough to crush a universe. Even so, he started to speed up. Senior Yinshin, you're playing with fire. The Flame Emperor's cold voice was filled with murderous aura. Chapter 644. Hearing Emperor Yan's threat, old ancestor Yinshin lowered his head and roared, Little bastard! You dare to say that I, your ancestor, am playing with fire? Do you believe that I, your ancestor, will kill you? How could he allow the Flame Emperor to tell him what to do? The Flame Emperor didn't reply, but the 10 Void Boundary Emperors were still chasing. When I, your ancestor, arrive at the Kunlun origin court, the next time I come out, you will all die. If it wasn't for the fact that my cauldron is still brewing, your souls would have already been destroyed. Accept your fear. Old ancestor Yinshin cursed as he flew at full speed. Qiuhu felt his scalp go numb as he shouted, Senior, don't provoke them again. Xing Tiandao and Si Mingyan were terrified as well. They wished they could cover ancestor Yinshin's face with a piece of dirty cloth. Unfortunately, they were not strong enough. The two sides continued to be deadlocked. About the time it took for an incense stick to burn had passed. Old ancestor Yinshin opened his mouth and a gust of strong silver wind gushed out from his mouth. It expanded rapidly as if the Milky Way had fallen down and occupied the entire spacetime tunnel. It was a spectacular scene. The expressions of the 10 Void Boundary Emperors changed drastically. They subconsciously wanted to dodge, but they were still drowned by the Silver River. Will they die? Qiuhu asked excitedly. Old ancestor Yinshin had shocked everyone the moment he made a move. The Milky Way just now had a great momentum and was obviously very powerful. Elder Yinshin answered, No, but we can keep them there to buy us some time. Qiuhu curled his lips in disappointment. Was old ancestor Yinshin considered strong compared to the 13 Void Boundary Emperors? He suddenly lost his sense of security and felt that it was inappropriate for him to follow Elder Yinshin. This old thing might abandon them at any time. Old ancestor Yinshin continued to lead them forward as if there was no end in sight. Gradually, Qiuhu, Xing Tiandao, and Si Mingyan felt their eyelids grow heavier. An indescribable exhaustion washed over them like a tide, causing them to feel extremely exhausted. After an unknown period of time, they finally fell into a deep slumber. Qiuhu felt himself fall to the ground. He opened his eyes in a daze and found that he was surrounded by fire. He opened his eyes wide and immediately got up. His consciousness was clear. He instinctively looked around and found Xing Tiandao and Si Mingyan lying beside them. Not far away, Zhou Xuanji was also meditating. What's going on? This is... Qiuhu held his forehead and gritted his teeth. Zhou Xuanji's voice came, You guys were thrown into the cauldron too. Qiuhu heard him and was stunned. He looked at Zhou Xuanji and asked, "What do you mean? He wants to refine us?" Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes. His violet pupils were extremely bright as though they were devilish. "I'm not sure, but it shouldn't be what you think. Otherwise we would have been burned to death." His answer made Qiuhu heave a sigh of relief. Next, Qiuhu woke up Xing Tiandao and Si Mingyan. They started to call old ancestor Yin Xin, but there was no reply. They could only focus on Zhou Xuanji. "Are you all right?" Si Mingyan asked with concern. Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, "Very good, I have broken through to Overlord Saint Level 3. Overlord Saint Level 3. Xing Tiandao, Qiuhu and Si Mingyan widened their eyes in shock. "How long has it been? Is that pill really that magical?" Xing Tiandao asked enviously. He, who had fallen from the Saint Plane, was extremely eager to return to the Saint Plane. Zhou Xuanji replied honestly, "It's magical indeed, but we don't know the disadvantages yet. There's no free lunch in the world." Old ancestor Yin Xin asked him to test the pill, not to help him improve his cultivation. His body was evolving toward a more powerful level, but his heart was always tense. He always felt that his body would collapse at any moment. This feeling made him very uncomfortable. So, he was not surprised at all but worried instead. "What should we do next?" Si Mingyan asked. He looked around and saw nothing but flames. There were no other living beings or mountains. It was just a boundless plain. "Let's wait," Zhou Xuanji muttered. "We can't escape anyway." He closed his eyes and continued to study his body. He did not want anything to happen to him. Old ancestor Yin Xin galloped in the boundless void. There were no stars here, only turbid fog. He carried the giant cauldron on his back and scanned his surroundings as he traveled, keeping an eye out for enemies. "We're finally here. Those guys are really troublesome." Old ancestor Yin Xin mumbled to himself with a proud smile. "You want to hunt me down? You are too naive." He continued ahead. After a while, a purple line appeared in the deep void ahead of him. As he got closer, the purple line grew bigger. It was a beam of purple light with no end in sight, as though it had split the void into two. Old ancestor Yin Xin, who was thousands of meters tall, looked extremely tiny before this beam of purple light, like an ant before the sun. He dived into the purple light and traveled forward at full speed. Countless lightning bolts weaved around his body. Boom! A gigantic palm came from the front and slammed into old ancestor Yin Xin, sending him flying away. Old ancestor Yin Xin returned to the void. He shook his head and cursed with gritted teeth. "Who is it?" As the voice faded, a burly figure slowly stepped out of the purple light. He was 1,000,000 feet tall and he wore black scaled armor. He had 12 wings on his back, 3 pairs of wings, and 3 pairs of black wings that were as sharp as blades. He wore a black iron mask that only revealed his eyes. His pupils were blood red, and he looked like a war god from the depths of chaos. Once he stepped out, the billowing clouds in the void stopped. Seeing him, old ancestor Yin Xin's expression changed drastically. "Void boundary god. What are you trying to do?" Old ancestor Yin Xin shouted in a deep voice. The void boundary god was very powerful. The void boundary 13 emperors were his guards. "Hand over the pair of eyes. The primordial ancestor has been captured. If you insist on acting recklessly, we will take away all the universes under your control and throw you into the deep universe hell for 10 billion years. The void boundary god shouted, his voice causing old ancestor Yin Xin's robe to flutter. Old ancestor Yin Xin did not panic. He flipped his right hand and a golden arrow appeared in his hand. "I have the golden venerable arrow. Are you sure you want to stop me?" The void boundary god's blood-red pupils shrank and he fell into silence. Old ancestor Yin Xin raised his head and laughed proudly. "You know who wants me to go back. If you dare to stop me, the consequences will be unimaginable." The void boundary god snorted and made way. Old ancestor Yin Xin flew away with the giant cauldron on his back. When he passed by, he looked down at him with his head held high. Soon, he disappeared into the depths of the purple light. The void boundary god looked in the direction he left and remained silent. After a while, he took out a piece of black paper, used his left index finger as a pen and wrote on it. "Old ancestor Yin Xin, that pair of eyes is not something you can covet. Even that existence covets those eyes. Just wait for your death," the void boundary god mumbled to himself. The void boundary god muttered to himself, his eyes burning with blood-red flames. After that, he turned around and flew into the void. He did not return to the Kunlun origin court. Chapter 645. In the Giant Cauldron. Zhou Xuanji, who was still studying his own body, was interrupted by the sword spirit's voice. It has been detected that the sword master has arrived at the Kunlun Origin Court, announcing the new grade of the divine sword. From lowest to highest, ordinary stone, iron, bronze, silver, gold, amethyst, glorious gold, heavenly soul, intimidating spirit, immortal shaking, God-slaying, world-destroying, ancient gazing, disaster-releasing, universe essence, overturning heaven, connecting heaven, 9 extremes, chaos, mysterious Tao, noble lord, vast sky, myriad life fusion, court toppling. Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes. He had never thought that he would reach the Kunlun Origin Court so quickly. Profound way, honored lord, vast sky, merging all life, court overturning. The last level, court subverting, represented the power to overthrow the Kunlun Origin Court? The supreme legendary sword system was truly domineering. To be able to create a divine sword that could subvert the Kunlun Origin Court, it seemed that the system was also becoming stronger along with him. Very good. Zhou Xuanji laughed. Since he had already entered the Kunlun Origin Court, it meant that old ancestor Yinxin did not go back on his words and they were safe. Qiu Hu asked curiously, "What are you laughing at?" Sheng Tiandao and Si Mingyan also turned to look at him. "We have already entered the Kunlun Origin Court," Zhou Xuanji replied, which surprised the three of them. "So fast? They thought it would take decades or even longer." "How did you know?" Sheng Tiandao asked curiously. Zhou Xuanji smiled mysteriously and did not explain. It was better to remain mysterious than to explain. Qiu Hu said excitedly, "If he says he's there, then he's definitely there. Senior, don't bully me." Zhou Xuanji closed his eyes and called for the old immortal in his heart. The old immortal had said that as long as he reached the Kunlun Origin Court, he would appear. However, no matter how he called out, the old immortal's origin did not appear. His heart couldn't help but sink to the bottom, and the joy of updating the level of the legendary sword also faded. After a while, old ancestor Yinxin's voice resounded in the cauldron. "We have arrived at the Kunlun Origin Court. I will hand you guys over to the others. If you want to survive in the Kunlun Origin Court, you have to rely on yourselves." Qiu Hu's eyes widened as he cursed. "You sold us again?" Empress Red Dragon handed them over to Patriarch Yinxin, who then handed them over to others. Weren't they the prey? Sheng Tiandao walked to Zhou Xuanji's side and said softly, "I'm afraid the situation is not good. Be prepared." When they had inquired about the Kunlun Origin Court, all they had heard was bad news. It was as if the Kunlun Origin Court was hell. Zhou Xuanji nodded and stood up slowly. The silver pill's medicinal effects were not completely absorbed by him. The remaining medicinal effects were all stored in the Tianxia map. The four of them stood in a row and waited quietly. About an hour later, the four of them were suddenly moved out. When they opened their eyes again, they found themselves in an iron cage. Beside them were countless cages of various sizes. In the distance, there were undulating hills and trees. There was a giant beside Zhou Xuanji and the others' cages. Compared to it, their cages looked like small rocks. What happened? Qiu Hu's eyes widened in shock. The four of them looked up and saw Ancestor Yinxin floating in front of the giant, discussing something. The giant was wearing a white robe with blue stripes. He had a kind face and a fat body, like a merchant in the mortal world. They spoke a strange language that Zhou Xuanji and the others could not understand at all. This was the language that the Red Dragon Empress spoke when she first woke up. It was probably the common language of the Kunlun Origin Court. Soon, the white-robed giant took out a golden silk bag and passed it to Ancestor Yinxin. After that, Ancestor Yinxin left in satisfaction. "He sold us." Qiu Hu roared. He was extremely furious. Although he could not understand what they were saying, it was obvious that they were making a deal. The white-robed giant carried Zhou Xuanji and the others' cages and flew up. The world shrunk rapidly in their eyes. They looked around and saw that there were at least 1,000,000 cages below them. They were so densely packed that their scalps turned numb. They expected to encounter danger when they first arrived at the Kunlun Origin Court, but they did not expect it to be like this. It was too humiliating. Zhou Xuanji did not speak. He grabbed the bars of the cages and tried to pull them open, but he realized that the cages were extremely sturdy. Even he could not move them. He looked around and realized that this world was vast. But when he looked up, he could see a gap as though they were in a giant bottle. He spread out his divine sense and realized that the space in the horizon was formed by the great Tao. Look forward to it. A good clan will buy you, or else you can only be the lowest grade soul slave. A voice floated down in a language that Zhou Xuanji and the others could understand. As expected, They were sold. Si Mingyan said loudly, "Do you know Empress Red Dragon? We are her saviors. She asked old ancestor Inshin to bring us here, not to sell us." The white-robed giant did not reply. Soon they flew out of this world. They looked back instinctively and realized that the world was actually a white jade bottle. Next, the white jade bottle shrunk rapidly and they landed on the ground. Tables and chairs appeared beside them, along with many boxes of different colors. This was an ancient-looking house. Enchanted artifacts and beast bones were hung on the walls. The white-robed giant returned to his normal size, which was slightly shorter than Zhou Xuanji. He looked like he was in his 40s and had a huge mole on his forehead. He flipped his right hand and threw 4 scrolls into the cage. "Learn the language of the Kunlun Origin Court. It will help you live better. If not for old ancestor Inshin, I would not have helped you." The white-robed man snorted coldly. After that he walked out of the room. Clang. The door closed and Chiu, who sat on the ground, paralyzed. The cage was not big. With the 4 of them squeezed together, they could not even lie flat on their backs. Zhou Xuanji picked up a scroll and probed it with his divine sense. A massive wave of memories flowed into his mind. Soon he mastered the language of the Kunlun Origin Court. Xing Tiandao, Si Mingyan and Chiu Hu learned as well. After they learned everything, they fell into silence. No one spoke. A long while later, Xing Tiandao looked up at Zhou Xuanji and asked, "Are we just going to wait and see?" Zhou Xuanji shrugged and said, "This situation is already good. It's better than being captured by the void boundary 13 emperors." Xing Tiandao heard him and felt that it made sense. Zhou Xuanji closed his eyes and continued to search for the old immortal's source. He had been looking forward to reviving the old immortal, but he did not want the old immortal to tell a white lie. About 3 days passed. Zhou Xuanji gave up. The old immortal's source did not appear. The door opened suddenly. The white-robed man walked in. He raised his right hand, and the cage shrunk into his hand like a bird cage. He left the room with the cage. Zhou Xuanji and the others opened their eyes and saw a forest outside. Many servants were planting flowers and plants. These servants were all in soul form. Could they be the legendary soul slaves? Chiu, who smiled bitterly, "I have never felt so wrong before." Chapter 646. Now we can only resign ourselves to fate. Xing Tiandao sighed, but Si Mingyan was very calm. He seemed to have expected this to happen. The white-robed man carried them through many alleys and came to a great hall. 3 people were drinking tea in the hall. The one in the middle was a lady. She looked dignified and wore an exquisite dress. She wore a veil that revealed a pair of bright blue eyes. She sat there obediently. The 2 men beside her were tall, and they were like 2 iron towers beside her. They wore the same black clothes and there were exquisite patterns on the surface. Their faces were pitch black and their eyes were so red that they were purple. Their long hair was casually draped over their shoulders. Just them? Only one is an overlord saint. The rest are not even at the saint stage. One of the men in black said with a frown. He sounded a little displeased. The white-robed man smiled apologetically. "So, the 3 of them did not calculate the price. Or else it would not be so cheap. This price for an overlord saint is already very fair." The 2 men in black looked at each other before looking at the lady in the long dress. "Them then." The lady in the long dress replied. Her voice was sweet, which was a stark contrast to the 2 men in black. The man on the right immediately took out a colorful jade bead. It was about the size of half a fist. After that, the white-robed man passed the iron cage to the man in black. In the cage, Chiu, who sighed in amazement. "It's my first time witnessing myself being traded like this. Most importantly, the 3 of us are free." Xing Tiandao and Si Mingyan's mouths twitched. They did not know what to say. Zhou Xuanji looked up at the lady in the long dress and realized that he could not see through their cultivation. And so, the lady in the long dress got up and left. One of the men in black followed behind her with the iron cage. After walking out of the great hall, they soared into the sky in a beam of light and disappeared above the sea of clouds. Zhou Xuanji scanned out with his divine sense to see what this world was like. But because the lady in the long dress and the other 2 were too fast, he could not extend his divine sense out. After a while, the iron cage opened suddenly, and a violent suction force pulled them out. They fell onto the ground in a sorry state. The powerful light around them dissipated. They got up and realized that they were in a valley surrounded by mountains. All sorts of slaves were mining and planting grasses. Most of them were in soul form. "This is the Longbo Divine Range. You are the servants of our young lady Yu Zhongxiu. Take a good rest and don't need to work for the time being. After a while we will come and find you." the black-clothed man said in a deep voice, and then disappeared with the empty iron cage. Longbow divine range? Zhou Xuanji and the others frowned. They knew nothing about the Kunlun origin court, and now that they had been reduced to slaves, they were even more confused. We have to ask someone, Xing Tiandao said. Zhou Xuanji and the other two nodded and walked forward together. Zhou Xuanji found that the weakest of these servants had universe heaven cultivation, but they all looked dispirited like mortals, or even more desolate than mortals. Outside the surrounding mountains was a layer of golden light that enveloped the entire forest. Clouds and mist lingered outside, making it impossible to see the specific situation. They quickly found an old man lying on the ground eating grass. This old man was as thin as a match and his upper body was bare. His hair was loose and his skin was dark and covered in all kinds of black stains. Senior, we have just arrived. Can you tell us about the Kunlun origin court? Si Mingyan asked respectfully, keeping a very low profile. The old man opened his left eye and looked at them as he said indifferently, "No problem, but my work." Xiaohu said, "I'll help you." Hearing this, the old man sat up and said casually, "It looks like you have just arrived at the Kunlun origin court, and then you were captured and sold to a divine range as slaves. Don't be disappointed. All living beings who come to the Kunlun origin court have to go through this. The Kunlun origin court is very xenophobic. Endure it a little longer and you'll get used to it." Zhou Xuanji and the others sat in front of him and asked curiously, "What was a divine range?" The old man smiled and said, "The Kunlun origin court is divided into divine ranges. Divine ranges are like worlds to you. There are strong and weak divine ranges, and the stronger the divine ranges, the more resources they control. Some divine ranges are dominated by sects, while others are dominated by clans. If you want to survive in the Kunlun origin court, you must find a divine range to settle down and register your identity. If you work hard and obtain Miss Yu Zhongxiu's recognition, you might be able to rise to the heavens and regain your freedom. All living beings who enter the Kunlun origin court, regardless of whether they are living beings or souls, will enter a great elimination in their first year. Only 1 in a million will survive, and once they are eliminated, their souls will be destroyed. Not only this, but every 1,000, 10,000, 1 million or 10 million years, they will enter a great elimination. This is for all living beings in the Kunlun origin court." Great elimination? Zhou Xuanji and the others frowned. This meant that the Kunlun origin court was indeed like purgatory. Si Mingyan asked, "What kind of test is the great elimination?" The old man narrowed his eyes and said, "There are all sorts of strange tests, but generally speaking, it depends on who can last until the end. The Kunlun origin court is the pinnacle of the universe, and every year there are countless new souls. If there are no restrictions, the Kunlun origin court will not be able to hold on. What is worth mentioning is that no matter how high one's cultivation is, they will have to go through a great elimination unless they have made contributions that are beneficial to the Kunlun origin court." Zhou Xuanji thought to himself. In that case, the Kunlun origin court was a place where the strong preyed on the weak. The weak could only die here. Moreover, they could not be reincarnated and their souls would be destroyed. How big is the Kunlun origin court? How many divine ranges are there? How big is a divine range? Xing Tiandao asked 3 questions in a row, causing the old man to glare at him. How big is the Kunlun origin court? How would low-level servants like us know? As for how many divine ranges there are, it's impossible to calculate. Divine ranges also have rankings and great eliminations. Every great elimination, the last 1,000 divine ranges are all killed. The great elimination of divine ranges usually happens once every 100,000 years. Do you know how many living beings there are in a divine range? It's impossible to count. The old man sighed. He was so fascinated by the dangerous and exciting Kunlun origin court. It was a pity that he did not even have the strength to escape from this forest. He was full of ambition. Si Mingyan looked at Zhou Xuanji and said, "Seems like we can only work hard on cultivating." Zhou Xuanji nodded. He thought so too. Hurry up and cultivate. After you start working, you won't be able to cultivate anymore. The ores in this mountain will absorb magic energy. Back then, I was even stronger than you. The old man grinned, revealing a mouth full of yellow teeth. Qiuhu's expression changed. He immediately got up and left with Zhou Xuanji and the others. "Wait, help me work," the old man shouted as he pointed at the mountain wall behind him. Qiuhu completely ignored him and the 4 of them left quickly. The old man was flustered and exasperated. He cursed loudly, "For bastards! You dare to fool me? Follow me." He pulled up his pants and picked up the hoe and iron saber from the ground before starting to work while cursing. Chapter 647. Zhou Xuanji and the others found an empty tree and began to cultivate. Since they couldn't escape, they had to work hard to cultivate. Zhou Xuanji desperately wanted to reach Overlord Saint level 7 so that he could use the Primordial Chaos legendary sword. Even if Yu Zhongxiu and her guards did not say anything, Zhou Xuanji could guess that it was not anything good. They needed an Overlord Saint, most likely for something that only an Overlord Saint could do. Moreover, it was extremely dangerous, or else they would not have found Zhou Xuanji. He didn't believe that the Kunlun Origin Court didn't have other Overlord sages. The reason why they did not look for other Overlord Saints was either because they could not afford it or the Overlord Saints who had bought it were all dead. He calmed his mind and stopped thinking about it. There seemed to be no day or night in this valley, and it was always bright. Those servants were busy with their own tasks, and there was no fixed time for rest. When they were tired, they would lie down, and not long after they would start working again. They were muddle-headed like walking corpses. After staying here for a long time, one could feel despair and numbness. The dark-skinned old man didn't come looking for trouble with them. None of the servants were willing to leave the area of 1,000 feet. When they were tired, they would rest where they were. In the blink of an eye. About a month passed. Zhou Xuanji absorbed another portion of the silver pill's energy to strengthen his saint energy. The remaining medicinal power of the silver pill was in his body, slowly fusing into his meridians. On this day, Yu Zhongxiu and the two black-clothed men descended, landing in front of Zhou Xuanji and the others. She looked at Zhou Xuanji and said, "Come with us." Qiu Hu, Xing Tiandao and Si Mingyan became cautious. Zhou Xuanji said to them, "Wait for me." After that, he walked up to Yu Zhongxiu and waited for her arrangements. A powerful energy covered Zhou Xuanji, and Yu Zhongxiu and the two black-clothed men turned into golden light and brought him away. Within the golden light, Yu Zhongxiu looked at Zhou Xuanji and said, "I'll bring you to register your identity. From now on, you are a member of the Longbow Divine Range." She looked at Zhou Xuanji curiously as though she was looking at a new species. "Is your Longbow Divine Range strong? What do you need me to do?" Zhou Xuanji asked. Although he had come to the Kunlun Origin Court, the threat of the Void Boundary 13 Emperors was still there. So, he wanted to know if the Longbow Divine Range could protect him or not. If he couldn't, then he would have to keep a low profile and even think of a way to change his base. After understanding the Great Elimination, he understood that only by displaying his talent and strength would the Divine Range value him more. Even Divine Ranges needed geniuses. Otherwise they would be eliminated. The Longbow Divine Range has been passed down for hundreds of millions of years. Do you think they are strong? What do I need you to do? You'll have to survive the first elimination. A man in black stared at Zhou Xuanji and said unpleasantly. He did not like Zhou Xuanji's attitude. This fellow didn't seem to put the Longbow Divine Range in his eyes at all. He was so calm and composed. This guy must be scared to death in his heart and is pretending to be calm. In the following year, I will do my best to nurture you and help you become stronger. Only after you pass the elimination will you be considered to have officially joined the Longbow Divine Range. This is also for you. Joining our Longbow Divine Range is actually an opportunity for you. Yu Zhongxiu chuckled. She was not angry at all, and her beautiful eyes were mesmerizing. Zhou Xuanji nodded and said, "If I pass the Great Elimination, can my 3 subordinates regain their freedom?" If Xing Tiandao heard this, he would definitely vomit blood from anger. "When did I become your subordinate?" Yu Zhongxiu replied, "You can. The geniuses nurtured by the Longbow Divine Range all have guards and servants accompanying them." Zhou Xuanji immediately let out a sigh of relief. One of the men in black could not take it anymore and said, "Boy, don't think that the Kunlun Origin Court is a lower realm universe. It's very difficult to survive there." The other man in black also gave a look of disdain. "You want me to fail? You want your young mistress to waste her resources?" Zhou Xuanji asked. After speaking, he shook his head. Hearing this, the two of them were so angry that their faces turned green. However, with Yu Zhongxiu by their side, they did not dare to act rashly. "All right, we're almost there," Yu Zhongxiu said, changing the topic. Yu Zhongxiu changed the topic. Then the golden light dissipated, revealing a huge city with many buildings. There were many creatures flying about in the air, and the streets were filled with people. Under Yu Zhongxiu's lead, they came to a massive tower that was dozens of kilometers wide and reached into the clouds. There were many entrances to this tower, and countless creatures were lining up to enter. Yu Zhongxiu's status was extraordinary, and no one dared to stop her. On the way, Zhou Xuanji received many envious and jealous gazes. He could sense that this was the first time these creatures had come to the Kunlun origin court. Only then was he shocked. Just the Longbo divine range alone had so many outsiders. Just how many people had entered the Kunlun origin court? Wasn't the Kunlun origin court very difficult to find? During the assessment, in addition to registering your name, age, and race, your aura will also be tested. You have to erupt with all your strength. At that time, the examiner will give you a rating. This rating is very important. It will determine what level you belong to in the Kunlun origin court. Yu Zhongxiu walked at the front, and her voice drifted into Zhou Xuanji's ears. Zhou Xuanji smiled. He had planned to go all out anyway. Only by displaying enough talent could one survive. At this time he couldn't hide his abilities. Once he hid his abilities, it was very possible that he would be frozen. After passing through the long passageway, they soon arrived at a spacious square with a diameter of 10 miles. In the center of the square, there were 10 examiners dressed in black robes. Their black robes were all engraved with the same divine beast patterns, which looked like Qilins. In front of them, there was a living being that had taken human form doing its best to unleash its aura. 1. 12 million years old, first level ordinary saint, 2-star aptitude. 75,350,000 years old, 7th level saint, 3-star aptitude. 3. 42 million years old, first level overlord saint, 4-star aptitude. 132. 46 million years old, first level ordinary saint, 1-star aptitude. The examiners' voices sounded throughout the entire square. 4-star aptitude would cause cries of surprise. Zhou Xuanji heard all of this. In the Kunlun origin court, overlord saints were more important than ordinary saints. He asked out of curiosity, aptitude starts from 1 star. What's the highest star? 9 star? Yu Zhongxiu replied, for ordinary living beings 9 star is the limit. They can enjoy the full support of the divine range, and they can even receive the support of the origin court. However, there are some existences that can surpass 9 star. Surpass 9 star? Zhou Xuanji felt even more curious. Just what kind of existence could surpass 9 star? If you can reach 6-star aptitude, you can stay by my side in the future? Yu Zhongxiu looked back at Zhou Xuanji and said seriously. The 2 black-clothed men's expressions greatly fell, but they did not act out. 5-star was not simple. Even though this boy had reached Overlord Saint level 3, his aura was quite unstable. It was evident that he had consumed some sort of medicinal pill or used some sort of secret technique. He was eager for quick success, which would only harm his aptitude. Chapter 648. Yu Zhongxiu brought Zhou Xuanji to an examiner and pointed at Zhou Xuanji as she said, "Let him come next." The examiner had a medium build and a small mustache. He nodded indifferently and did not say anything. Zhou Xuanji patiently waited. The creature beside him was doing his best to raise his aura. His face was red and veins bulged on his neck. Seeing him like this, even Zhou Xuanji felt anxious for him. Don't shake the excrement out of your stomach. Finally, his results were out. 97,370,000 years old, ordinary saint level 3, 2-star aptitude. The examiner said expressionlessly. Then he let the creature walk in front of him. He held a golden seal in his right hand and placed it on the creature's shoulder. When he left, this creature wasn't disappointed, instead releasing a sigh of relief. As long as they had a star rank, they could stay. There were also many living beings who didn't even have the qualifications to become 1-star cultivators and were reduced to slaves. Zhou Xuanji walked up. The examiner sized him up and asked expressionlessly, "Name?" Zhou Xuanji. The examiner waved his hand and Zhou Xuanji walked up to him. The examiner stretched out his right hand and placed it on Zhou Xuanji's forehead. A strange power flowed through his body. In the next second, the examiner's expression suddenly changed. His eyes widened as he grabbed Zhou Xuanji's shoulder with his left hand and pressed his right hand against Zhou Xuanji's forehead. Zhou Xuanji frowned slightly and was a little displeased. This fellow was using too much strength. What happened? A black-clothed man asked curiously. Could it be that there was something wrong with this kid? Yu Zhongxiu frowned as well. She rarely saw such an expression on the examiner's face. In the past, this would only happen if the examinee wanted to cheat. Zhou Xuanji was just a servant. How could he have the chance to cheat? The surrounding creatures and examiners all looked over, and many doubtful gazes fell on Zhou Xuanji. He's not even 1,000 years old. More accurately, he's not even 600 years old. How is this possible? The examiner muttered to himself with a strange expression on his face. His eyes were filled with disbelief. When the living beings nearby heard this, they were all stunned. Yu Zhongxiu and the two black-robed men widened their eyes. Their first reaction was that the examiner had drunk something wrong last night. The other examiners gathered around. "Are you kidding me? Old merchant, are you awake? He has the cultivation of an overlord saint level 3. 6 million years is already amazing, but 600 years? I think you don't want to work anymore?" The examiners spoke one after another. Some were ridiculing him and some were dissatisfied. Examiner Jia said angrily, "Come and check yourself." His voice trembled and he looked at Zhou Xuanji as if he was looking at a freak. After that, the other examiners surrounded Zhou Xuanji and checked his age. The creatures who were waiting in line for the assessment all glanced over and discussed spiritedly. All the living beings thought that Examiner Jia had gone mad. Soon, all of the examiners finished examining Zhou Xuanji. They all fell silent and looked at Zhou Xuanji with complicated expressions. This scene silenced the entire square. Could it be that this kid was really less than 600 years old? How could this be? Even if he possessed someone else's body or reincarnated, it was impossible for him to reach Overlord Saint level 3 at 600 years old. Some monstrous geniuses with earth-shattering cultivation bases were born from gestation. Generally speaking, such creatures were born from eggs or were conceived from their mother's body. Is he really less than 600 years old? A man in black robes standing beside Yu Zhongxiu muttered in disbelief. He had never seen such a preposterous thing before. When he was 600 years old, he was far from even reaching universe heaven. What's more, Zhou Xuanji was not a native creature of the Kunlun origin court. That's right, he's really less than 600 years old. Overlord Saint level 3, what kind of star is that? 9-star talent? Not just that. 9-star isn't enough to measure him. Could it be that we have to invite the Ultrastar examination? How many years has it been since there has been an Ultrastar examination? The examiners all sighed in amazement and began to discuss among themselves. Zhou Xuanji felt like a panda in a zoo being pointed at by them. Even though he felt a bit uncomfortable, he was still looking forward to the Ultrastar examination. Since he was going to reveal his talent, he was going to soar to the sky. Yu Zhongxiu walked up and asked, "Does he need to apply for the Ultrastar examination? If he does, can he do it quickly? He just came and is about to participate in the Great Elimination." The examiners all nodded, and in the end, Examiner Jia went to apply. This fellow was no longer as calm as before, and he was now very excited. The remaining 9 examiners were all very enthusiastic, surrounding Zhou Xuanji and praising him in all sorts of ways. Even Yun Zhongxiu was praised, saying that the Longbow Divine Range had given birth to a supreme treasure. With Zhou Xuanji, the Longbow Divine Range would definitely become even more powerful. The creatures waiting for the examination were all sent into an uproar. Talent that surpassed 9-star. All of the doubts they had towards Zhou Xuanji were dispelled, and they were replaced with worship and respect. Zhou Xuanji's name was deeply engraved in their minds. In the end, Zhou Xuanji was taken away by Yun Zhongxiu. On the way back, the 2 black-clothed men remained silent, not daring to say anything. "In a bit, bring your 3 subordinates and move out. You can stay in my residence. If you need anything in the future, you can come and find me," Yun Zhongxiu said as she smiled. The strong were respected, and it was the same no matter where it was. Zhou Xuanji did not put on airs and nodded as he said, "Thank you for your trouble." Yun Zhongxiu ordered the 2 black-clothed men to bring Qiu Hu and the others over, while she brought Zhou Xuanji to her residence. She did not mention the slight from before. She trusted that Zhou Xuanji would understand. Rather than apologizing, it was better to make up for it with practical actions. Zhou Xuanji took this opportunity to ask about the Kunlun origin court situation. This time Yun Zhongxiu replied patiently. There were more than 10,000 surviving divine ranges. The Longbow divine range could only be considered average, but its ranking was dropping with each great elimination. In the Kunlun origin court, even the top-ranked divine range could fall. Because the great elimination was divided into 2 types. One was for individuals, and the other was for the entire divine range. When the top-ranked divine range's experts were killed one by one in the great elimination, the top-ranked divine range naturally could not maintain its position as the overlord. It was no exaggeration to say that in the Kunlun origin court, apart from the sovereign, anyone could die. The sovereign was the ruler of the Kunlun origin court. No one knew his specific name, but everyone called him the sovereign. "Is the Longbow divine range afraid of the void boundary god?" Zhou Xuanji asked. He was worried that the sovereign was behind the void boundary god. Yun Zhongxiu replied, not at all. Although the void boundary god belongs to the sovereign's bloodline, the difference between them and the sovereign is like heaven and earth. The sovereign is absolutely fair to all living beings. Even if they kill the sovereign's descendants in the Great Elimination, nothing will happen. Because the Great Elimination was created by the sovereign himself. Zhou Xuanji nodded, and the pressure in his heart disappeared. Yun Zhongxiu said in a profound manner, I won't ask you what conflict you have with the void boundary god. If you pass the Ultrastar examination, even the void boundary god will have to salute you, and you can even order him around. Chapter 649. After hearing Yu Zhongxiu's words, Zhou Xuanji felt incredibly pleased. Weren't the Void Boundary God and the Void Boundary 13 Emperors very arrogant? The next time he saw them he wanted to see what kind of expression they would have. But what was the origin of the primordial ancestor's eye? He had to investigate this matter thoroughly and he couldn't do it openly. Zhou Xuanji followed Yu Zhongxiu to her residence. Her mansion occupied an area of tens of miles, just like a city within a city. Inside there were many servants cleaning. Seeing her return, the servants all saluted but did not greet her, afraid that they would disturb her. Zhou Xuanji scanned the place with his divine sense and found that the servants here had decent cultivation. The lowest cultivation was at Heavenly Law True God. It seemed that in the entire city, he had never seen an existence lower than a Heavenly Law True God. This was the Kunlun Origin Court. The starting point was the peak that most mortals couldn't reach. Not long after, Yu Zhongxiu brought Zhou Xuanji to a courtyard. There was a garden inside and there were 5 servants cleaning it. There were men and women. You can stay here. I'll stay next to you. You can look for me if you need anything. Someone will bring you spiritual food and tea at night. If you're afraid of cleaning, you can set a time for them to deliver your food. Your 3 subordinates will be here soon. I have to inform the elders of the Longbow Divine Range about you. Yu Zhongxiu said with a smile. Although she was wearing a veil, her smile was still beautiful. Zhou Xuanji nodded and walked toward the house in front of him. Yu Zhongxiu disappeared as well. After entering the house, Zhou Xuanji realized that the space inside was much larger than he had imagined. It seemed that this house also contained some kind of spatial restriction. After entering, it felt like living in a palace. He walked into the inner room, sat on the bed and began to cultivate. Yu Zhongxiu did not say what the next Ultrastar examination would be, as she had never seen it before. No matter what, Zhou Xuanji had confidence and so did Yu Zhongxiu. In her words, even if she didn't pass, she was still a 9-star divine range. This kind of aptitude belonged to the top 1,000 divine ranges. Soon he discovered that the spiritual energy in the house was very dense, much denser than in the Heavenly Law universe. He opened his eyes and saw that there were oil lamps hanging in every corner of the room. The spiritual energy was coming from these lamps. How extravagant! Zhou Xuanji sighed in amazement. This was just a guest room. Moreover, the Longbow Divine Range was neither high nor low in the Kunlun Origin Court. At this moment he felt like a country bumpkin entering a village. Another moment passed. He sensed Qiu Hu, Xing Tiandao and Si Mingyan's auras and went out to welcome them. Seeing Zhou Xuanji, Qiu Hu rushed over and said excitedly, Master! You're too amazing. His aptitude is beyond 9 stars. The 2 men in black had already told them the reason on the way, which was why they were so excited. It's indeed amazing. In the Heavenly Law universe, Zhou Xuanji was the most powerful genius in history. He had never thought that he would be so outstanding in the Kunlun Origin Court. Xing Tiandao was also very excited. At this moment he only had boundless admiration for Zhou Xuanji. He was determined to follow Zhou Xuanji forever. Only then could he follow Zhou Xuanji to the heavens. The 2 men in black bowed to Zhou Xuanji and left quickly. They simply did not have the face to face Zhou Xuanji and were afraid that Zhou Xuanji would hold a grudge against them. With Zhou Xuanji's talent he would definitely surpass them in the future. They did not even dare to have any evil thoughts. In the divine range, if they dared to kill each other secretly, the consequences would be worse than death. This was especially so for the geniuses that the divine range focused on nurturing. The consequences would be unimaginable. Zhou Xuanji asked Qiu Hu and the others to find a room each before he returned to his own room to cultivate. Qiu Hu and the others understood that he was preparing for the Ultrastar examination, so they did not dare to disturb him. After all, this concerned their fate. And so, Zhou Xuanji and the others went from prisoners to honored guests. Every day they were treated to all sorts of wine and dishes that were rich with spiritual qi. Their trip to the Kunlun Origin Court was no longer painful. During this period, Zhou Xuanji ordered some spirit wine and dishes to share with Jiang Shui and the others. When he finished talking about his experiences during this period of time, all the women were shocked. The most excited were Xian Xianghua and Zhou Xiaoxian. Xian Xianghua desired power, while Zhou Xiaoxian was purely curious. Zhou Xuanji did not bring them out because he had not established himself in the Kunlun origin court yet. He could not act recklessly. And so, the days passed. 10 days later, Yu Zhongxiu came to find him. She was accompanied by a dozen people. Standing beside her was a tall middle-aged man dressed in luxurious clothes. His eyes were like torches and he had the aura of a noble. His cultivation was unfathomable, and Zhou Xuanji could not see through him at all. I am her father, Yu Xinzhong. From now on, you will be the genius that our Yu clan is nurturing. If you have any dissatisfaction, you can come to me directly. The range lord of the Longbow Divine Range is still in closed-door cultivation and cannot come to see you personally. But don't worry, with your talent he will definitely value you highly. The middle-aged man spoke with great vigor and seemed very heroic. Although Xiu bought you from the black market and there must be a reason. But don't worry, from now on the Longbow Divine Range will protect you. Even if it's the top divine range, we dare to fight. Yu Xinzhong continued to speak. These words were a little arrogant, and Zhou Xuanji did not believe them. He asked, if I want to walk around the Kunlun origin court, can I? Yu Xinzhong nodded and said, of course you can. But it's best to have someone accompanying you. It's not to monitor you but because the Kunlun origin court is vast, and it's easy to get lost. If you stray into other divine ranges, it will be very dangerous. Zhou Xuanji nodded. He had never thought of running away. He had finally found a foothold and the other party was willing to nurture him. Why should he run away? He just did not want the Longbow Divine Range to become the next divine range. Zhou Xuanji shook his head. How could he think like that? It was too unlucky. Yu Xinzhong continued to speak. Next, the Origin Court will send high-level examiners to conduct the Ultrastar examination for you. At that time, I will promote you and let you shine in the Longbow Divine Range. Even if you fail the examination, your 9-star talent will be enough for you to look down on others. I'm not trying to kill you with flattery. In the Kunlun Origin Court, the more dazzling you are, the more attention and resources you will receive. This matter is even related to the Great Elimination. You will understand the details in the future. His eyes were burning with passion. He had lived for so long and this was the first time he had seen someone with 9-star talent. Under normal circumstances, this kind of talent would only be found in those powerful divine ranges. Each of them was extremely powerful and unparalleled. Qiu Hu, who was beside him, said with a smile, don't worry, my master doesn't know how to keep a low profile. Zhou Xuanji glared at him and Qiu Hu chuckled and immediately shut up. Yu Xinzhong burst into laughter and took a step forward. He patted Zhou Xuanji's shoulder and said, the Longbow Divine Range thinks highly of you. You should be a smart person. With your talent, you will not be as free in a powerful divine range as you are in the Longbow Divine Range. You will not be able to enjoy so much attention and nurturing because there are other geniuses with similar talent there. Chapter 650. Yu Xinzhong chatted with Zhou Xuanji for a long time before leaving with his people. The courtyard became quiet. Xing Tiandao said softly, don't tell anyone about those eyes. Don't completely trust the Longbow Divine Range. He was worried that Zhou Xuanji would be impulsive and fail miserably. Don't worry, I understand, Zhou Xuanji nodded calmly. He was not moved by the Longbow Divine Range's passion and was instead used to it. The Longbow Divine Range might sound nice now, but who knew what would happen in the future? There were not many factions like the Divine Cliff. Thinking of the Divine Cliff, he thought of Han Shuzi. It was a pity that there was no turning back. The four of them chatted for a while before returning to their own rooms to cultivate. Time passed quickly. Half a month later, Yu Zhongxiu came to welcome Zhou Xuanji personally and brought him to the Ultrastar examination. Qiu Hu, Xing Tiandao and Si Mingyan followed. Along the way, the servants they met all looked at Zhou Xuanji excitedly and whispered among themselves. He's the genius with over 9-star talent. It should be him. The aura of an overlord saint is rare. I feel like he has some sort of halo around him. I heard that all the powerhouses of the Longbow Divine Range will come for the examination. We'll see a group of Dao-treading saints. I'm really looking forward to it. Such a grand occasion is rare. Zhou Xuanji heard their voices. Dao-treading saint? Was this a title or a realm? Zhou Xuanji thought to himself. After a moment of hesitation he asked, what's the realm above the saint realm? Yu Zhongxiu looked back and smiled sweetly. The Saint realm is divided into Overlord Saint, Common Saint, and Heavenly Saint. Above them are existences close to the Great Tao and are called Tao-treading Saints. Those with Tao-treading Saint cultivation can live alone in the Kunlun origin court for a long time. Above them are Tao ancestors. Those who can become Tao ancestors are almost all the masters of divine ranges or people that the top 1000 divine ranges support. Tao-treading Saint, Tao ancestor. Zhou Xuanji remembered these two names. He did not ask about the higher realms. Even if he knew, it would be meaningless. He had not even caught the tail of a Tao-treading Saint yet. Yu Zhongxiu did not fly and instead slowly walked out of the residence with Zhou Xuanji. The streets were filled with people and even the buildings were filled with people. They were all looking around as if they were waiting for someone. Seeing Yu Zhongxiu walking out with her people, countless gazes turned to look at them. All of their gazes were focused on Zhou Xuanji because Yu Zhongxiu took half a step back and walked alongside him. Walk straight ahead. Let them remember you. Yu Zhongxiu said softly, making Zhou Xuanji feel a bit speechless. Even if he wanted to create momentum, there was no need to be so exaggerated, right? Since things had come to this, he could only walk forward with his head held high. Qiu, whose face was filled with envy as he said, "How great would it be if I could have such treatment?" Si Mingyan glanced at him and said, using Zhou Xuanji's words, "You need to know your limits." The two of them were having fun arguing with each other. 2 hours later, Zhou Xuanji finally saw his destination. It was a spacious square with a diameter of several miles. There were already many cultivators standing guard at the edges to prevent people from crossing the boundary. There were all kinds of buildings as tall as mountains next to the test plaza, and countless creatures were waiting eagerly. In the center of the plaza, Yu Xinzhong and a group of beings with equally powerful auras were chatting and laughing. Among them was an old man, who was beaming with joy from all the flattery they had given him. No matter what, this old man will do the test honestly. Don't worry everyone, the old man said as he stroked his beard and smiled. The old man stroked his beard and smiled. His words had a double meaning, and he was also telling Yu Xinzhong and the others not to play any tricks. Yu Xinzhong loudly laughed and pretended not to understand. "They're here." A middle-aged man suddenly called out, causing everyone to look over. Yu Zhongxiu walked over with Zhou Xuanji, while Qiu Hu and the others stopped at the edge of the plaza. They wanted to come closer but were stopped. If they went any closer they would be in danger of dying, causing their bodies to tremble. Zhou Xuanji walked forward expressionlessly, ignoring everyone's gazes. "He's Zhou Xuanji?" It said that he came from outside the Kunlun origin court and reached Overlord Saint level 3 before 600 years old. What nonsense, how could he not be 600 years old? Maybe he's just boasting. The high-level examiners are here, do you still think it's fake? There were all sorts of discussions. Before the results came out there would definitely be arguments. Xing Tiandao was also worried for Zhou Xuanji. From how he saw it, Zhou Xuanji was not only 600 years old. He had been looking for Zhou Xuanji for thousands of years. Of course, according to what Zhou Xuanji said, it might be fate that sent him thousands of years into the future. His soul and body were indeed less than 600 years old. If that was the case, Xing Tiandao was naturally happy. Now he accompanied Zhou Xuanji without any disloyalty. Because of Zhou Xuanji's care, they had good food and drinks in Yu Zhongxiu's residence. They did not feel like servants at all. Soon, Zhou Xuanji and Yu Zhongxiu came before the high-level examiner. "Relax, come closer," the old man said with a smile. He did not have the airs of a high-level examiner at all. Zhou Xuanji took a step forward, and the old man placed his hand on his forehead. The old man closed his eyes and began to observe Zhou Xuanji's age. Instantly, the noises at the edge of the plaza disappeared. All living beings held their breaths and waited for the result. If Zhou Xuanji really had talent beyond 9 stars, then the longbow divine range would become famous. A while later, the old man opened his eyes and said solemnly, "Attack me with all your might." With this, Yu Xinzhong and the others quickly retreated to the edge of the plaza. All the guards activated a spell formation, and a translucent golden barrier rose and covered the plaza. Yu Xinzhong was very excited because this meant that Zhou Xuanji had already surpassed 9 stars. Next, it was time to see how many stars he had. The spectating living beings did not know about this and continued to wait. Zhou Xuanji took out the thunderclap sword and used the sword fusion technique. More than 1,000 legendary swords fused together, and his aura grew tremendously. The entire plaza trembled violently. Next, he used the 9-soul fusion technique and his aura grew even more powerful. His body burned with intense flames, and the battle path flame soul was formed. Most living beings opened their eyes wide. His aura had already surpassed Overlord Saint level 3. Even a level 5 Overlord Saint might not be as powerful as him. Zhou Xuanji moved and slashed with his sword. The sword chi collided with the old man with a loud boom, but a formless barrier blocked his sword chi. He did not panic at all but swung his sword swiftly. Boom, 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 streaks of sword chi crashed into the old man. His sword moved with extreme speed, leaving behind countless afterimages. The ground beneath his feet crumbled and cracks spread across the entire plaza. Yu Xinzhong was shocked and speechless. This is the aura of a level 3 Overlord Saint? Yu Zhongxiu's beautiful eyes sparkled. Seeing how mighty Zhou Xuanji was, she was extremely excited. It was not that she liked Zhou Xuanji, but she felt honored that Zhou Xuanji was her subordinate. Chapter 651. Use your full strength. I know you're much stronger than this. The old man shouted. His voice was like a clap of thunder that resounded through the entire city. Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji leaped back and 18 sword souls condensed behind him. The sword souls slashed out, turning into sword Dao rules. They were like 18 giant swords of light that slashed towards the old man. The elder did not move a single step and relied on his formless aura to negate the sword Dao rules. He should be a Dao-treading saint or even stronger, a Dao ancestor? Zhou Xuanji squinted his eyes and was shocked in his heart. In front of him he felt so weak like a child punching an adult. He immediately mobilized his will and prepared to unleash his strongest attack. He raised the thunderclap sword high, and billions of lightning bolts flashed, causing the entire world to change between light and dark. At this moment, he had transformed into a god of thunder, causing many living beings to be dumbfounded. A lightning sword descended from the sky. It was so fast that it seemed to have teleported. Heavenly sword descent. There was a loud bang. The ground beneath the old man's feet instantly crumbled and turned into dust. He looked up and was slightly moved. This kid, he was shocked in his heart. He could sense the level of Zhou Xuanji's Dao will. He was only an Overlord Saint level 3, but he had such a deep understanding of the great Dao. An absolute genius. Zhou Xuanji sheathed his sword as well. His black robe fluttered in the wind, and he looked calm and composed. He was no longer as violent and fierce as before. The old man floated in the air and fell into deep thought. The audience was silent. They were waiting for the old man to give them the results. The old man said slowly, 12-star aptitude. He flipped his right hand and took out a purple gold stamp. He teleported in front of Zhou Xuanji and imprinted it on Zhou Xuanji's right arm. In that moment, Zhou Xuanji felt a burning sensation, and a large hole appeared on his sleeve. 3 large words appeared on his right arm, 12 stars. Boom. The area around the square instantly exploded. 12-star. Did I hear that right? 12 stars? Mother. There's more than 1 star above the 9 stars? There's a 12-star? How come I've never heard of it after living for so long? The Kunlun origin court is so big. How many places have you been to? Too strong. The longbow divine range is about to rise. My great Dao old master 12 stars, how can he say that? All of the creatures cried out in alarm, shouting themselves hoarse. They didn't dare believe their ears at all. Yu Zhongxiu, Yu Xinzhong and the rest were stunned. They had imagined that Zhou Xian would be able to pass the Ultra-Star examination, but they had never thought that he would be able to pass the 12-star examination. 12-star. This? Yu Xinzhong slapped himself to make sure that he wasn't dreaming. Xing Tiandao, Qiu Hu and Si Mingyan almost went crazy. They hugged each other and cheered. The old man smiled and said, "My name is Hong Yuan. If you have any inconveniences in the future, you can look for me. I will record your information in the origin court, and your identity token will be delivered to you within half a year. Before you get the identity token, it is best not to go out, especially outside the longbow divine range." The more he looked at Zhou Xuanji, the more satisfied he was. He rarely encountered 12-star geniuses. Naturally, he had to build a relationship with them in advance. If Zhou Xuanji died prematurely, then they would not be fated. If Zhou Xuanji could soar into the sky, it would be good karma for him. Just like his name, Hong Yuanren believed in fate. Zhou Xuanji nodded and said, "Thank you, senior." Hong Yuan smiled, turned around and flew toward the divine jade bell. The deafening clamor did not stop. Instead, it became more and more intense. Zhou Xuanji looked at those crazy creatures and was a little confused. "I have 12-star talent. What are you all so excited about? Aren't you afraid that I will squeeze out your resources?" Zhou Xuanji did not understand, but he did not think too much about it and flew toward Yu Zhongxiu. The plaza had already collapsed and rocks were everywhere. If this was the heavenly law universe, his aura would have been enough to destroy a great thousand world. One could see how hard the ground here was. Xiu, take little friend Xuanji to rest, Yu Xinzhong said with a smile. Yu Xinzhong said with a smile. Then he pulled Hong Yuan over and greeted her warmly. Yu Zhongxiu smiled at Zhou Xuanji and left with him. Young Master Zhou, you are really powerful. It's my first time seeing a 12-star talent, Yu Zhongxiu said with a smile. Yu Zhongxiu chuckled, her voice sounding even sweeter than before. Zhou Xuanji smiled and asked, do you know the highest number of stars? Yu Zhongxiu replied, I'm not sure. I heard that the most powerful should be 16-star. Those are reincarnations of existences that surpass Tao ancestors. They cannot be compared. 16-star, Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. It seemed that he had underestimated the Kunlun origin court. Coming before Xing Tiandao and the others, Qiu Hu said excitedly, Master, I want to kneel before you. Zhou Xuanji waved his hand and said, go back and kneel for a month. Xing Tiandao and Si Mingyan laughed loudly. Yu Zhongxiu could not help but laugh as well. She did not expect Zhou Xuanji to be so humorous. After that, the group quickly left. The entire city began to chant Zhou Xuanji's name. News of his 12-star talent would definitely spread beyond the Longbow Divine Range. At that time, the Longbow Divine Range would also be in the limelight. That day, Yu Zhongxiu chose a row of beautiful and charming women and let Zhou Xuanji choose his maidservants. He could take all of them. In the future, these maidservants would be under his control. No matter what he did with them, Yu Zhongxiu would not interfere. Zhou Xuanji said helplessly, bring them back. Do I look like someone who likes this? He already had 2 wives. If he really desired other women, how could he not find them? Yu Zhongxiu was stunned for a moment before bursting out in laughter. She immediately waved her hand and dismissed the women. When the women left, they all looked regretful and disappointed. They had thought that they could get close to Zhou Xuanji, but they did not expect him to be such an unromantic person. No wonder he had reached Overlord Saint level 3 before 600 years old. He must have spent all of his time on cultivation. Zhou Xuanji did not know about their dissatisfaction. Even if he knew, he would not care. Yu Zhongxiu chatted with him for a while before leaving. Zhou Xuanji let out a long breath and muttered, I can finally cultivate in peace. In the next half a year, he planned to not leave his residence and wait for his identity medallion to arrive. After this, he would still have to participate in the Great Elimination. When that time came, he and Xing Tiandao and the other 2 might be in disarray. The Great Elimination was split into many areas, or else it would be unfair if the difference in cultivation was too great. He turned and returned to his room. He sat on his bed and began to cultivate. Just as he closed his eyes, a voice sounded in his ears, 12-star talent? I never thought that I would underestimate you. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes and a look of joy appeared on his face. Senior, you're finally awake, he said in a low voice, suppressing his excitement. It was the old immortal. How many times have I told you to be calm? How come you're in a mess again? The old immortal's voice once again sounded out. It sounded like he was blaming Zhou Xuanji, but it was also filled with joy. Zhou Xuanji closed his eyes and his consciousness entered the Tianxia map. This was a forest. Even though it was an illusion, it was very real. The old immortal sat under a tree and chuckled as he looked at him. He walked up and said, I've already come to the Kunlun Origin Court, how do I revive you? Chapter 652. You don't have to resurrect me. If I resurrect, I will still be found. If you can reach the soul source pool of Kunlun Origin Court and put me in it, my soul will be cleansed, reborn, and reborn. The old immortal replied with a smile, which made Zhou Xuanji curious. What is the soul source pool? The old immortal continued to explain. The soul source pool was the birthplace of the Kunlun Origin Court and all souls in the universe. As long as one fell into it, no matter how high one's cultivation was, he would return to his original form and be reborn. Only in this way could the old immortal's enemies not find him. Zhou Xuanji nodded and asked, how do I go to the soul source pool? He wondered if the sovereign would also die if he fell into the soul source pool. Perform well in the Great Elimination. One day you will get an official position in the Origin Court. At that time, you can choose to be a soul guardian, the old immortal replied with a look of anticipation in his eyes. Zhou Xuanji continued to ask, can you tell me the origin of the primordial ancestors' eyes now? This matter had always been a hanging stone in his heart. As long as he didn't understand it clearly, he would feel uneasy. That pair of eyes is one of the Kunlun Origin Court's 5 ultimate divine eyes. It's called Exterminating Divine Eyes. It can suppress space, set time, and break all 5 elements. The 5 ultimate divine eyes are legendary treasures in the Kunlun Origin Court. If you can get them, you will be qualified to surpass the Tao Ancestor. Now that you have 12-star aptitude, don't worry. Unless you are targeted in the Great Elimination, as long as you don't go to the enemy's divine range, they can't do anything to you, the old immortal said with a smile, stroking his beard. The more he looked at Zhou Xuanji, the more satisfied he was with him, like a grandfather looking at his grandson. He thought that Zhou Xuanji had a chance to enter the Kunlun Origin Court. He didn't expect him to give him such a big surprise. 12-star aptitude. Among the creatures he knew, only Zhou Xuanji could reach this level. The other creatures were at most 8-star. If the old beggar knew about this, he would definitely regret it. 5 ultimate divine eyes, the qualification to surpass the Tao Ancestor. Zhou Xuanji's eyes flickered. The two chatted for a while before the old immortal fell into a deep sleep. To prevent himself from being discovered, he planned to stay in the Tianxia map. Zhou Xuanji didn't know how long it would take for him to come into contact with the soul source pool. His source couldn't last that long. He could only fall into a deep sleep to reduce the consumption as much as possible. After withdrawing his consciousness from the Tianxia map, Zhou Xuanji began cultivating seriously. The Yu family had indeed done their best for him, sending him all kinds of cultivation resources every day, allowing his saint energy to grow continuously. Half a year later, Yu Zhongxiu personally brought Zhou Xuanji's ID medallion over. Zhou Xuanji took the medallion and examined it. Apart from his name, there were also the Longbow Divine Ranges Yu clan and 12 stars. The identity medallion was made of green jade and was very light, as if he was holding a feather. He put the identity card into the supreme storage and asked, "Is there anything else, monsieur?" Yu Zhongxiu did not leave. Instead, she stood in front of his door, and it was obvious that she had something to say. "The news of your 12-star aptitude has already spread out. You will be participating in the Great Elimination alone. The other disciples of the Longbow Divine Range are not qualified to participate in the same Great Elimination as you. I hope you can prepare early. If you want magic treasures or divine abilities, just tell me and I will personally take you to choose them." Yu Zhongxiu said seriously. The 12-star aptitude surprised them at first, but later on the Longbow Divine Range started to worry. Because Zhou Xuanji was too outstanding, he would not encounter anyone from the Longbow Divine Range during the Great Elimination. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said, "No need. I'm confident." He already understood that the Great Elimination was a battle between cultivators of the same level. Could he use virtual fire at the same level? Whoever dares to stop him, he will kill them all. Seeing how confident he was, Yu Zhongxiu could not help but laugh. No wonder he could become a 12-star genius. Such confidence was indeed impressive. Yu Zhongxiu did not disturb him anymore and left. Zhou Xuanji returned to his bed and asked the 4 demon gods to continue cultivating their saint energy while he comprehended the great Tao. This city was not the only city in the Longbow Divine Range. The Divine Range was like a tall tower, and this city belonged to the Yu clan. There were at least hundreds of clans in the Longbow Divine Range, and there were more than 100 million living beings. He realized that the Longbow Divine Range was permeating with a special great Tao. It was very weak, but it existed. So, he wanted to comprehend this great Tao. His cultivation was already spoiling things through excessive enthusiasm, so he might as well improve his Tao will. This way, his battle prowess would grow stronger, and his chances of winning in the Great Elimination would be higher if his cultivation did not change. At the same time, at the top of the Longbow Divine Range, in a gloomy palace, dozens of oil lamps flickered. The shadows on the walls looked like dancing demons. Deep inside, an old man in a loose robe opened his eyes suddenly. His eyes had double pupils and his hair was tied up with golden threads. He was emanating an extremely powerful aura. Someone is comprehending my great Tao, and he's only an overlord saint. The old man in a big robe mumbled to himself with curiosity on his face. The Longbow Divine Range had been pushed back in every great elimination, which filled him with anxiety. So, he had been in isolated cultivation. If he met a talented junior, he would naturally promote him. He immediately scanned with his divine sense and found that the kid was in the Yu clan, and he was staying beside Lady Yu. He began to search for information with his divine sense. Soon, he heard the discussion of many servants. 12-star. The old man in a big robe stood up immediately. He frowned in joy and his body began to tremble. He disappeared on the spot to investigate the authenticity of this information. In the blink of an eye, another few months passed. The great elimination was finally coming. Everyone bring out your identity medallions. Yu Xinzhong's voice resounded in the courtyard. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes and stored the 4 demon gods into the Tianxia map before walking out of the house. Xing Tiandao, Qiuhu and Si Mingyan walked out too. They were in high spirits and were in a good mood. They were Saint contenders, and they were enjoying the resources of the Yu clan. They had already begun to break through to the Saint realm. He will bring the 3 of you to the portal of the great elimination. Xuanji, my little friend, will be led by me personally. Yu Xinzhong pointed at a muscular man beside him and said. Xing Tiandao and the other 2 immediately followed him. Qiuhu turned around and said, Master, after the great elimination, let's have a good drink. Zhou Xuanji nodded with a smile, but he was a little worried in his heart. He hoped that they could make it through. After all, this was not the heavenly law universe but the Kunlun origin court. Xuanji, my little friend, come with me, Yu Xinzhong said with a smile. After that, he waved his right hand and swept Zhou Xuanji away with his magic energy. Only Yu Zhongxiu followed him. They were shrouded in a golden radiance as they soared through space. The old ancestor wants to see you. Before you enter the great elimination, he will teach you a divine ability so that you can survive more easily. Yu Xinzhong turned around and said to Zhou Xuanji. He looked calm, but he was extremely excited in his heart. Their Yu clan was going to make a comeback. Not only that, but as long as Zhou Xuanji continued to grow, the entire longbow divine range would soar. Chapter 653. Under the guidance of Yu Xinzhong and his daughter, after half an hour they came to a dark palace. Zhou Xuanji looked ahead and saw an old man in a big robe sitting on the ground. The old man was staring at him with cold eyes like a hungry wolf. He could not help but raise his brow. A divine ability inheritance requires such an atmosphere? He's the old ancestor of the longbow divine range. He's also the divine range lord. You can just call him Old Ancestor. Yu Xinzhong introduced Old Ancestor Longbow to Zhou Xuanji. He had heard of the Old Ancestor in the Yu clan. No one knew how long the Old Ancestor had lived. A long time ago he was a genius from another divine range. He distinguished himself and established the Longbow divine range on his own. Brat, come here. The Old Ancestor's voice came. Zhou Xuanji walked over without hesitation. Yu Xinzhong and Yu Zhongxiu waited where they were. Zhou Xuanji walked up to the Old Ancestor and bowed slightly. The Old Ancestor sized Zhou Xuanji up and praised, You're indeed less than 600 years old. How miraculous. I wonder which universe could nurture such a supreme treasure like you. Supreme treasure? Zhou Xuanji felt uncomfortable all over, but he did not refute. After that, the Old Ancestor raised his right hand and tapped Zhou Xuanji's forehead with his index finger. A massive wave of memories flowed into Zhou Xuanji's mind. At the same time, a wave of bizarre energy circulated in his body. A while later, Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes and cupped his fist. Thank you, Old Ancestor, for your gift. This divine ability was called Violet Sun Tunneling. It was a divine ability that allowed one to travel through the 5 elemental space and the Great Tao's wall. That bizarre energy should be some kind of Great Tao. The Old Ancestor was afraid that he would die in the Great Elimination, which was why he gave him the Violet Sun Tunneling. Go, I'll wait for you to come back. I still have many divine abilities to teach you. The Old Ancestor chuckled. He waved his right hand and sent Zhou Xuanji to Yu Xinzhong and his daughter. Yu Xinzhong immediately left with Yu Zhongxiu. The smile on the Old Ancestor's face disappeared. A look of worry appeared on his face as he mumbled, I hope those guys won't go overboard. It was too difficult to protect a 12-star genius from a divine range like theirs. They would either be taken away by other divine ranges or destroyed. For the future of the Longbow divine range, Yu Xinzhong was willing to take a gamble. Even if he failed, only Zhou Xuanji would die. An hour later, Zhou Xuanji and the others came to a void. In front of them was a long bridge that connected to an ancient castle. Looking around, there were very few stars in the dark void. There were many creatures advancing on the spear, and it was extremely noisy. I heard that there's a 12-star genius in this round of elimination. I hope this time I can get through it. Sigh, I'm not ready yet. This time the Great Elimination Dojo is very cruel. There are many fierce characters. Even some of the top 1,000 divine ranges have sent their disciples to participate. Even the top 1,000 are coming? This is King under the table manipulation. Zhou Xuanji heard the discussions around him and immediately caught 2 pieces of information. His participation had been revealed. The divine ranges ranked in the top 1,000 were participating. Combining the two, he immediately came to a conclusion. No wonder Ancestor Longbow was worried about him. The corners of his mouth curled up into a disdainful smile. "What are you smiling at?" Yu Zhongxiu asked curiously. She thought that Zhou Xuanji would feel uneasy after hearing the news, but he was still smiling. Zhou Xuanji stopped smiling and said, "Wait for me to come back." His powerful confidence stunned Yu Xinzhong and Yu Zhongxiu. Yu Xinzhong said, "We will wait for you outside the teleportation gate. The rules are simple. Try your best to survive. When there are only the specified number of people left, everyone can come out. There might be all kinds of restrictive spells, powerful ferocious beasts, ghosts, etc. Be careful. Your opponents are not only from other divine ranges. Also, the identity medallion of whoever you kill will be absorbed into your identity medallion, so you don't have to hide who you killed." He had never been so nervous before. He was even more nervous than when he participated in the Great Elimination himself. Because Zhou Xuanji carried too much hope. He did not want Zhou Xuanji to die. Zhou Xuanji asked, "If I kill a disciple from a powerful divine range, can your longbow divine range handle it?" Yu Xinzhong nodded and said, "There's still a long time before the next Great Elimination. It's enough for you to grow." Zhou Xuanji was completely at ease now. He sneered as he walked, "Then wait for me to turn the Great Elimination upside down." Yu Xinzhong and his daughter's heartbeat quickened. They somehow believed Zhou Xuanji's words. After they entered the ancient castle, just as Zhou Xuanji had guessed, the space inside was huge. There were thousands of teleportation gates, and people stepped into them one after another. There were many images floating in the air, which were the scenes of the Great Elimination. It was just the beginning and people were already fighting. The time to enter the Great Elimination was one day. If someone did not enter the Great Elimination within the specified time, they would be burned into ashes by the identity imprint. It was the imprint on Zhou Xuanji's arm. It was a spell that the Kunlun Origin Court used to control them. The three came to an empty teleportation gate. Yu Xinzhong pointed at a stone pillar in front of the gate and said, "Put your identity medallion on it." Zhou Xuanji had already noticed that there was a groove on it, which made him feel like he was swiping a subway card. After the identity verification, the teleportation gate glowed brightly. Zhou Xuanji stepped into it and disappeared. Yu Zhongxiu asked, "Father, is the old ancestor really ready to face the pressure?" Yu Xinzhong nodded and then shook his head. He said faintly, "It still depends on his performance. As long as he's impressive enough, the old ancestor will go all out." After entering the teleportation gate, Zhou Xuanji felt the world spinning around him. An extremely powerful force enveloped him, and he could not use his divine will. Soon he landed. He regained his consciousness quickly. He looked up and realized that he was standing on a cliff. The scenery around him was picturesque, and the sun was setting in the distance. This is the Great Elimination? Such dense spiritual qi. Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself in surprise. No wonder those who survived the Great Elimination could usher in a period of rapid growth. It seemed like the Great Elimination was a great serendipity for powerful cultivators. Zhou Xuanji sat down and began cultivating with the thunderclap sword by his side. Outside, Yu Xinzhong and Yu Zhongxiu had already found the image of Zhou Xuanji. They were stunned. "This brat is too conceited," Yu Xinzhong said furiously with a frown. He was willing to believe that Zhou Xuanji could survive, but he could not act recklessly. Yu Zhongxiu also frowned but did not speak. Her evaluation of Zhou Xuanji was greatly reduced. Dead geniuses were meaningless. Some escorts from other divine ranges came up to them. "This is the rumored 12-star prodigy? He's so arrogant. He's going to die." Since ancient times, many geniuses died in the Great Elimination because of their arrogance. It seems like your Yu clan can't make a comeback. Chapter 654. The Longbow Divine Ranges Yu family had a 12-star genius, and he was even bought from the black market. This matter caused quite a stir in the Kunlun Origin Court. Thousands of divine ranges tried to buy Zhou Xuanji from the Longbow Divine Range, but they were all rejected. This caused the Longbow Divine Range to make many enemies. In this Great Elimination, many divine ranges sent people to kill Zhou Xuanji or invite him to join other divine ranges. But in the Kunlun Origin Court, if one wanted to change their identity card, the original divine range had to agree. The Longbow Divine Range did not agree. No matter what, the other divine ranges would not be able to get Zhou Xuanji. So this time they sent more powerful cultivators to kill Zhou Xuanji. The outside world was in an uproar. More and more people gathered around Yu Xinzhong and his daughter, all wanting to witness the heroic bearing of a 12-star prodigy. Zhou Xuanji still did not know that he had become the center of public opinion. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care. Rather than hiding, it was better to fight head-on. It just so happened that he wanted to test how strong he was right now. Not long after, an ear-piercing sound was heard. A valiant man with 2 pairs of golden wings flew over with 2 long whips in his hands, causing the forest along the way to shake, as if a green ocean was surging with stormy waves. He swung his whips at Zhou Xuanji, and the 2 whips turned into 2 horrifying black dragons that tore at him. Zhou Xuanji did not get up but continued to meditate. The thunderclap sword at the side suddenly moved. Lightning flashed and millions of lightning sword shadows appeared in the sky, fiercely attacking the golden-winged man. Everything happened too quickly. Before the golden-winged man could react, he was struck by the primordial chaos sword shadow. Rumble, an explosion erupted, destroying the heavens and the earth. The noise was vast and deafening, and strong winds swept through the world. Zhou Xuanji's black hair was blown backward, and his white robe danced in the wind. Now he only wore 2 kinds of clothes, pure black clothes and pure white clothes. In the supreme storage he had prepared more than 10,000 of them. If he didn't have enough, he could go to the Lotus World to get more. Even though he was blown by the strong wind, his white robes were not stained by a single speck of dust. The outside world was in an uproar. He did not expect Zhou Xuanji to be so ferocious and injure the enemy before he even stood up. No wonder he was so arrogant. What kind of divine ability is that? That person is a disciple of the Golden Rock race. How domineering. Looks like he's waiting here on purpose. The Great Elimination Portal hasn't closed yet. This is too exciting. I feel that the Grand Elimination Dojo here will be very exciting. The spectators from the other divine ranges cast their spells to spread the news. Although the Longbow Divine Range was vast, Zhou Xuanji was the only disciple who could participate in this preaching site. There were countless Great Elimination Dojos in the Kunlun Origin Court. Because the lifespan of each creature was different, there were countless Great Elimination Dojos opening every day, and the number of participants in each dojo was different. The one who manipulated everything was the Supreme Being. Yu Xinzhong and Yu Zhongxiu were also shocked by Zhou Xuanji's performance. They had never seen Zhou Xuanji use the primordial chaos sword shadow before. They immediately dispelled their opinions of Zhou Xuanji and looked forward to Zhou Xuanji's performance. After the primordial chaos sword shadow hit the enemy, Zhou Xuanji instantly absorbed a massive amount of saint energy, which almost made him cry out. It felt so good. As expected, only battles can make me stronger quickly. Zhou Xuanji got up slowly and held the thunderclap sword in his hand. At this moment, the golden-winged man charged out again. He was drenched in blood and had fallen into madness. Stinking brat. I want you dead. He roared furiously. The aura of an 8-level saint exploded, shaking the heavens and the earth. Zhou Xuanji laughed in disdain and charged toward him. Like 2 meteors crossing each other, the golden-winged man's head was decapitated. Blood spurted out like a fountain. Zhou Xuanji absorbed all of his saint energy and turned around to use universal attraction. He pulled the golden-winged man toward him and extracted his soul with the Tianxia map. His sword qi exploded and turned the golden-winged man's body into ashes. He died a painless death. Since his opponent wanted to kill him, he would not show any mercy. An 8-level saint was like a pig to him and he could kill him easily. The corners of his mouth curled up as he flew in a certain direction. Just when he turned around, he felt something drilling into his right arm. It should be the other party's identity mark. This place was destroyed and it was no longer suitable for cultivation. He left quickly. A while later, he landed on a mountain top and was about to cultivate. A gigantic python with rock patterns crawled up the mountain wall and tried to eat him. He did not look back but used sword qi soar. The sword qi shot out from his back and killed the python. Troublesome. Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself before closing his eyes to cultivate. Swoosh, 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 air-piercing sounds came from all directions, which made him open his eyes again with a slight frown. 12-star genius? Let's see how powerful you are. Let's attack together and kill him here. A 12-star life. I have never killed one before. Haha, this brat is so arrogant. He dares to cultivate in such an obvious place. Overlord Saint level 3. Not bad. Numerous figures gathered. Each of them had an extraordinary aura and held powerful treasures in their hands. Their murderous auras soared into the sky. Zhou Xuanji counted. There were 26 people in total, and the weakest was Overlord Saint level 3. He could not see through most of them, but they did not give him a sense of danger. You must be Zhou Xuanji. I'll give you a chance. Join our Dragon Dive Divine Range and you can live. A young man wearing a jade crown laughed coldly and pointed his sword at Zhou Xuanji. He looked at Zhou Xuanji with disdain as though he was looking at a prisoner. The other 25 people raised their enchanted artifacts and quickly got into a formation. Rays of golden radiance burst out from their bodies, connecting to the sky and the ground. Screens of light shot out from their left and right, connecting to each other and forming a spell formation that trapped Zhou Xuanji. Is this how the Dragon Dive Divine Range invites people? Zhou Xuanji asked. He remembered the name in his heart. What a joke. Don't you know the prestige of the Dragon Dive Divine Range? We have cultivators beyond 12-star in our Divine Range. It is your honor to join us. The young man in red snorted. He did not take Zhou Xuanji seriously at all. His cultivation was Overlord Saint level 7, and his talent was 9-star. There was no reason for him to fear Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji used the sword fusion technique straight away. Over 1,000 legendary swords fused into his body, including the 3 clear Tai Chi sword and Great Thousand Reincarnation sword of the 9 extreme. Boom. His aura exploded and the mountain under his feet crumbled instantly. The golden formation distorted exaggeratedly. Everyone in the Dragon Dive Divine Range, including the young man in red, was shocked. Zhou Xuanji activated the Emperor's Way Thousand Hand Sword Buddha straight away. A golden Buddha rose from the ground and Zhou Xuanji, who was standing on its head, soared into the sky and looked down at the young man in red. In the blink of an eye, the Thousand-Hand Sword Buddha grew to 100,000 meters tall. The golden formation bound it like a tight suit. Zhou Xuanji stretched out 1,000 arms and broke the formation. One of the cultivators in the formation was sent flying backward while vomiting blood. The young man in red immediately took out an aquamarine long saber and slashed at Zhou Xuanji. Chapter 655. Boom, boom, boom. The Thousand-Hand Sword Buddha brandished 1,000 swords and slashed in all directions, causing the disciples of the Dragon Dive Divine Range to flee in panic. Very quickly, several disciples were killed and died miserably. Just as their souls flew out, they were destroyed. Their bodies and souls were completely destroyed. The red-robed young man moved like a phantom. He quickly went to the Thousand-Hand Sword Buddha's head and slashed. A green radiance burst out and countless dark green water arrows inundated Zhou Xuanji from all directions. The venom contained within was extremely corrosive, which distorted the space around it. Zhou Xuanji raised his right hand and slashed with the Thunderclap sword. Void instant kill. PFFTT, the red-robed young man's chest was penetrated by the Thunderclap sword. Blood splattered and his expression froze. How can it be? He opened his eyes wide and could not believe his own eyes. He sensed a hellish murderous intent from Zhou Xuanji's peripheral vision. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a ball of smoke and teleported millions of miles away. Why is he so fast? What divine ability is that? He thought while panting. His forehead was covered in cold sweat. At this moment he suddenly regretted. If he knew this, he would not have accepted this mission. 12-star geniuses were all insane. Swoosh. An air-piercing sound came and the red-robed young man dodged immediately. A sword chi penetrated his shoulder and he gritted his teeth in pain. Seeing that he escaped, the other Dragon Dive Divine Range disciples panicked even more. Bastard! How dare you abandon us? Run. This guy is too tough. We are no match for him. Damn it, my magic power. He's absorbing our magic energy. We can't fight anymore. The disciples cursed furiously. Soon they reached a consensus and fled. Zhou Xuanji would not let them do as they wished. He chased after them with the Thousand-Hand Sword Buddha. After absorbing the saint energy of 12 ordinary saints consecutively, his cultivation grew tremendously. If he continued to fight like this, he would break through soon. The great elimination was a feast for him. Boom! The enormous Thousand-Hand Sword Buddha rampaged about, smashing mountains into pieces and trampling on lakes with unstoppable might as it pressed forward. In the outside world, in the ancient castle, more and more living beings gathered behind Yu Xinzhong and his daughter to watch the battle on the screen. He's too powerful. He's a disciple of the Dragon Dive Divine Range. They are not on the same level at all. No wonder he was assessed as a 12-star genius. My God, they're going to fall out with the Dragon Dive Divine Range. Well done. I like such a domineering prodigy. Looks like the great elimination this time will cause a huge commotion. Hearing the exclamations of the surrounding living beings, Yu Xinzhong was extremely excited, and his entire body trembled. Yu Zhongxiu looked calm on the surface, but her heart was in turmoil. This was the first time she had seen someone from the longbow divine range display such divine might in the Great Elimination. She suddenly began to anticipate what kind of existence Zhou Xianfeng would become. Dao Father? Or even higher? Zhou Xuanji pursued closely. Other than the young man in red, the other 26 disciples of the Dragon Dive divine range were all killed by him. The holy power in his body was about to burst, and he could break through at any time. However, he wanted to kill the red-clothed youth first before breaking through in one go. What will it take for you to let me go? The red-robed young man roared angrily. Fear and despair took over his heart, and he fell into an unprecedented state of panic. This was the first time he had experienced death so closely. I will really die. It's simple. Let me kill you. Zhou Xuanji's cold voice came. The red-robed young man did not show any mercy to him. He deeply believed in one thing, which was to never show mercy to the enemy. The red-robed young man heard him and sped up. They traveled swiftly across the mountains and rivers one after another. Along the way they encountered many living beings from other divine ranges, and they were all shocked by Zhou Xuanji's boldness. Who is that guy? He dares to chase after a disciple of the Dragon Dive divine range. How dare he? It's him. The 12-star genius of the longbow divine range. I've seen his portrait before. Indeed, none of the 12-star geniuses are easy to deal with. He's too arrogant. Let's hide further away. Zhou Xuanji ignored the cries of surprise along the way. He only had one target, and that was the red-robed young man. He suddenly deactivated the Emperor's Wei Thousand Hand Sword Buddha and used the violet sun tunneling technique. He turned into a beam of violet light and chased after the red-robed young man. Swoosh! 2 beams of light shone on the red-robed young man and stopped him instantly. Exterminating divine light. Targeted at the enemy and immobilized them. The red-robed young man's scalp almost exploded. What kind of divine ability was this? Zhou Xuanji came up behind him and slashed with sword Dao rules. The red-robed young man was turned into ashes by the sword qi immediately. Shortly after, Zhou Xuanji no longer suppressed the violent saint energy in his body and began to break through. His muscles bulged and his aura was horrifying. The surrounding space rippled like the surface of a lake, and the forest within a radius of 10,000 miles trembled. His aura rose steadily, like a hot knife through butter, unable to stop. Boom! He broke through to Overlord Saint Level 4. This scene made all the spectators gasp in amazement. He broke through right after the battle. Could this guy have some kind of divine ability to absorb magic energy? Such a divine ability was not rare, but it was an inferior one. Because the magic energy of others did not belong to the cultivator, absorbing too much would only destabilize the cultivator's foundation, and the consequences would be dire. Far away, on a mountain peak, a white-haired man sat on the ground. His white hair was long and scattered on the ground like a loose white robe. His face was pale and his eyes were sinister. He looked toward Zhou Xuanji's direction with an odd smile. Not bad. He has a 13-star aptitude. I can refine him into a puppet, the white-haired man mumbled. The white-haired man mumbled. He did not act immediately but waited for Zhou Xuanji to finish his breakthrough. Even though he had witnessed Zhou Xuanji's power, he was no longer worried. To him, although Zhou Xuanji was incredibly talented, he was still lacking in power. 2 hours later. He stood up and was ready to move. On the other side. Just when Zhou Xuanji was about to leave, he sensed an extremely dangerous aura sweeping toward him. He turned around and fled almost instinctively. Swoosh! He used the violet sun tunneling technique and turned into a stream of violet light, flying away at high speed. Who is that guy? Why is his aura so horrifying? Could it be that he has reached Overlord Saint Level 9? Zhou Xuanji was shocked in his heart. He traveled at full speed through the space as though he was teleporting. A cold and emotionless voice came, "You can't escape. Stop now and I will spare you some pain." Zhou Xuanji immediately used the primordial chaos sword shadow. Billions of sword shadows appeared out of nowhere and charged toward his back. The sound of explosions came from behind him, one after another, deafening to the ears. Soon he saw a mountain range shrouded in dense fog. The baleful aura soared into the sky. It was probably a forbidden land. He dashed in without hesitation. Chapter 656. Seeing that Zhou Xuanji had entered the misty mountain peaks, The white-haired man stopped and frowned slightly. He didn't barge in. Instead, he landed on the ground and meditated in front of a large tree, waiting quietly. The spectators outside were in an uproar. Why is evil ancestor Shurchan here? He's a level 9 overlord saint with a 10-star aptitude. Origin Court is so vicious. They want to kill Zhou Xuanji on purpose. It can't be helped. A 12-star genius shouldn't exist in the longbow divine range. The longbow ancestor is too greedy. Isn't that so? If it were me, I would definitely send this kid out. When Yu Xinzhong and Yu Zhongxiu heard these words, their faces turned ugly. The Kunlun Origin Court's great elimination seemed fair, but in reality the hierarchy was very strict. The divine ranges ranked above 1000 and those ranked below 1000 were two completely different worlds. The stronger the divine ranges, the faster they would develop. They would constantly exploit the low-ranked divine ranges. Generally speaking, if a divine range in the top 1000 fell, it would be because the other divine ranges in the top 1000 attacked them together. Could be seen how polarized the divine ranges were. Evil ancestor Shurchan came from one of the top 1000 divine ranges. He was less than 100 million years old and came from outside the Kunlun Origin Court. This was his second time participating in the Great Elimination. His strength had already surpassed the Sage Realm, so his appearance in the Great Elimination of the Sage Realm was simply against the rules. This is troublesome, Yu Xinzhong muttered to himself with an ugly expression. Zhou Xuanji was being hunted down by evil ancestor Shurchan. He had to flee in panic. He even fled into a dangerous place. Obviously his odds of winning were very low. Meanwhile, Zhou Xuanji landed at the foot of a mountain and suppressed the saint energy in his body. He had just broken through and his saint power was not yet stable, so he needed to meditate. Evil ancestor Shurchan didn't come in, which meant that this place was very dangerous. Zhou Xuanji released the 4 demon god bodies to guard the surroundings to prevent enemy attacks. Time ticked by. He could feel the aura of evil ancestor Shurchan outside, waiting for him. 3 days later. Evil ancestor Shurchan hadn't left yet. Zhou Xuanji got up and walked towards the depths of the peaks. I advise you not to go any deeper. Otherwise you will wish you were dead. Evil ancestor Shurchan's voice came, but Zhou Xuanji didn't stop. He dived in without hesitation. He knew that he couldn't defeat evil ancestor Shurchan, so he might as well go inside and fight. What if there was a great opportunity? He brought the 4 demon god bodies with him and quickly flew along the ground. The further he flew, the dimmer the light became and the thicker the fog became. If not for his holy power, he would have been soaked through. What is hidden here? Zhou Xuanji squinted his eyes and was on guard. For some reason he felt very uneasy. His eyelids kept twitching, and his eyes felt a stinging pain. The exterminating divine eyes seemed to be warning him that there was danger nearby. In order to prevent any accidents, he merged the bodies of the 4 demon gods into his body to strengthen his senses. The thunderclap sword appeared beneath his feet. Thunder rumbled and it could kill evil spirits. In the Kunlun Origin Court, any creature was very strong. It was almost impossible to hide their aura and sound. Rumble, the earth suddenly shook violently, as if a huge monster was rushing out from the depths of the earth. Zhou Xuanji was shocked. He immediately used the violet sun tunneling technique and passed through the mountains. He quickly disappeared into the horizon. Soon he realized that something was wrong. No matter how he sped up, he couldn't fly out of this mountain range. It was impossible for it to be so big. There must be some kind of restriction that confused his sense of direction. He didn't panic and continued to move forward at full speed. At the same time he activated the exterminating divine eyes. His eyes burst with purple light, turning his field of vision purple. He saw countless golden objects scattered in the mountains and underground. They should be the ferocious creatures hiding in the dark. It can be used like this? It's just like thermal imaging. Zhou Xuanji thought to himself. He was pleasantly surprised in his heart. In this state he could sense how strong those ferocious creatures were through their aura. The strongest one was right behind him, chasing him relentlessly. He looked back and saw that the ground behind him was like a golden ocean sweeping toward him. It was vast, boundless, and extremely spectacular. What the hell is that? Zhou Xuanji panicked a little because that thing gave him goosebumps. It gave him a much stronger sense of crisis than evil ancestor Shurchan. He immediately took out a concealment grass and put it in his mouth. At the same time he stored the thunderclap sword into the supreme storage. He instantly disappeared from his spot and flew in another direction. However, that thing was still chasing him, refusing to give up. He immediately activated the sword fusion technique and charged forward with the Saint Slayer sword in hand. Boom! He broke through the ground and plunged into the ground. He was completely fearless as he charged toward the mysterious existence with no regard for his own safety. With the help of the exterminating divine eyes, he felt that he had directly plunged into a golden ocean. He didn't encounter the behemoth that he had imagined. He rushed all the way and saw the situation around him clearly. It turned out that this golden ocean was an extremely powerful energy, and there was a petite figure in the center of this golden ocean. He fixed his eyes on it. It turned out to be a black cat with blue pupils and a body half a meter long. It was standing on a rock with its forelimbs crossed, looking at him coldly. A cat? Zhou Xuanji's expression instantly turned weird. The black cat suddenly moved. BFFF. Before Zhou Xuanji could react, his chest was pierced through. The black cat appeared 100 meters behind him with his purple heart in its mouth. Countless rubble collapsed, separating them from each other. This? Zhou Xuanji's eyes widened as he felt his vitality rapidly fading away. He wanted to grow a heart on his own with Saint energy, but he couldn't do it. To be precise, the black cat had directly taken away the violet demon monarch's heart, cutting off his vitality. He couldn't even activate the celestial devil rebirth technique. Am I going to die here? Zhou Xuanji felt his eyelids getting heavier and heavier. The cat's shrill cry resounded in his ears. He felt a pair of claws on the back of his neck, and next his consciousness went blank. In his daze, Zhou Xuanji felt something licking his face. He gradually regained consciousness. He opened his eyes with difficulty and saw a black cat standing on his chest, looking down at him condescendingly. A tinge of disdain could be seen in its blue eyes. Above him was the night sky. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. A dense fog covered most of the night sky. Zhou Xuanji didn't panic or struggle. What do you want? He asked. The black cat's power was unfathomable. He knew that he was no match for it, so he gave up resisting. Brat, do you want to live? The black cat asked. Its voice was sharp and cold, and it was hard to tell whether it was a male or female. Of course, Zhou Xuanji replied. It didn't seem to be some evil being. This guy's mind was very clear. The black cat smiled with squinted eyes. Serve me and make me happy. If I'm in a good mood, I will let you go. Otherwise, even a Tao-treading saint cannot save you. Zhou Xuanji frowned. He was a little confused. Why did the Kunlun Origin Court put such a powerful being in this great elimination? Chapter 657. Tell me, how do you want me to serve you? Zhou Xuanji took a deep breath and said. He had to lower his head when he was under someone else's roof. No. It was time to lower his head to the cat. The black cat walked to the side and Zhou Xuanji immediately felt his body relax. He sat up with his hands and was shocked to find that there was still a bloody hole in his chest. His heart was gone. He was not dead. He turned to the black cat and asked, "Where's my heart?" The black cat licked its paw and said with a fascinated look, "I ate it. It was delicious." It? Zhou Xuanji felt as though he was struck by lightning. Even his calm mind could not take it anymore. The violet demon monarch's heart was one of the main sources of saint energy. Without it, his cultivation speed would be greatly reduced. Don't look at me like that. You consumed some kind of elixir earlier. Although your cultivation has increased significantly, the toxicity of the elixir has seeped into your heart. If you continue to cultivate like this, you will die from the poison when you break through to Tao-treading saint. By then, you will not be able to stop it, the black cat said lazily as though it wanted Zhou Xuanji to thank it. Poison? Zhou Xuanji frowned and cursed in his heart. Old Ancestor Inshin was up to no good indeed. The next time he meets Old Ancestor Inshin, he must get even with him. You won't die now, but only for 10 days. If you want to live, then come and entertain me. I've been here for billions of years and I'm so bored that I want to explode. Those guys I met before were either scared to death or panicked. The stories they told were not funny at all and the food they cooked was disgusting too. The black cat laid on the ground and mocked. Zhou Xuanji looked around instinctively and realized that the mountain peak was filled with bones. There were human bones and beast bones. If an ordinary person was here, he would have been scared to death. He looked back at the black cat and fell into deep thought. The mountain peak fell silent. Hurry up. I'm going to sleep. The black cat snorted coldly and was a little displeased. Why is this brat not panicking at all? Zhou Xuanji said, "Come here. Lie on my legs." The black cat leaped over and landed on his legs before lying down lazily. Brat, I'm telling you, don't play any tricks. My body is so powerful that you can't hurt me at all. You will only anger me. Understand? The black cat snorted, its tone laced with killing intent. Zhou Xuanji was expressionless. He grabbed its paw and stroked its paw. It retracted its paw instinctively and soon felt comfortable, so it stopped struggling. It was indeed a cat. Zhou Xuanji was speechless. It was his first time seeing such a powerful cat. As he stroked it, he asked, "What's your name? Where are you from? Why are you here?" The black cat felt very comfortable being touched by him. It stretched its body and said with a smile, "My name is very famous. My name is Barbaric Ultimate God, and I'm one of the Kunlun Origin Court's 5 ultimate gods. I offended a powerful expert of the Origin Court and was suppressed here. I can never escape and I can't even step out of this forbidden area." 5 ultimate gods? Zhou Xuanji immediately thought of the 5 ultimate divine eyes. Could the two be related? That's right, your exterminating divine eyes and my eyes both belong to the 5 ultimate divine eyes. This is also the reason why I can talk so much nonsense with you. The black cat flipped over and revealed its belly. Zhou Xuanji raised his left hand and rubbed its belly. The 5 ultimate divine eyes were created by you guys? He asked curiously. He still did not know the true origin of the 5 ultimate divine eyes. The black cat replied lazily, "I advise you not to ask so much. That's what happened to me. The less you know, the safer you will be." Zhou Xuanji thought about it. The black cat stared at him and cursed, "Brat, I asked you to serve me, not be my disciple. Not only do you want to massage me, but you also want to make me happy." Zhou Xuanji sighed and said, "Then I will tell you a joke." The black cat laughed coldly, "Those who tell me jokes are all dead. No one can make me happy." Zhou Xuanji's eyes looked gloomy as he said, "Then be prepared. You will die of laughter." The black cat heard him and became spirited. It flipped over and faced him, waiting for him to tell a joke. "Back then when I was traveling the world, I met a thief. He stole my sword and I immediately sensed it and chased after him. But the thief's cultivation was about the same as mine. Half a year passed and I still could not catch up to him. Then we came to the end of the world. He stood on a cliff and cursed loudly. He said that if I forced him again he would throw his sword down. I said, then throw it. If you throw it, I will have a reason to kill you." Zhou Xuanji began telling a story with a sorrowful expression. Seeing how serious he was, the black cat felt a little strange. Wasn't this a joke? Why did it feel like he was talking about the past? This thief was very daring. He threw my sword down. How could I bear it? I drew my other sword and killed him. Zhou Xuanji sighed, which made the black cat frown. "And then?" it asked. It did not understand. What was so funny about it? "He died and then he reincarnated," Zhou Xuanji said. "And then?" the black cat asked further. It almost exploded in anger. It felt like it was being toyed with. "Are you sure you want to know more?" Zhou Xuanji confirmed again. The black cat pressed its sharp claws against his throat and used its actions to tell him the answer. "Afterwards, I met an old man who called himself Jiang Zia and looked incredibly deep and unfathomable. As such, I chatted with him and he told me his story." Zhou Xuanji continued to speak and he changed the entire investiture of the gods to Zhou Xuanji. The black cat was immersed in the excitement of the battle between Shang and Zhou and the schemes of the immortal gods. Daji's viciousness, King Zhou of Shang's cruelty, and especially the cruel torture of the Shang dynasty, made the black cat gnash its teeth in anger. Zhou Xuanji spoke for 2 hours. He described the investiture of the gods in detail and told it an epic story. In the end, Jiang Zia retired from the world of immortals and demons, and he did not meddle in politics. The black cat admired his great enlightenment. The black cat sighed in amazement. "I pity those saints. They fought to the death in the end. I really don't know why. Was it just for the fight between their disciples?" To the black cat, since one had become a saint, there was no need for him to stay in the mortal realm. He should pursue greater power and a higher level of the universe. All in all, the story was very exciting. It was immersive and could feel the heroism, scheming, sinister, and loyalty of those characters. It was very satisfied and even had a feeling that it wanted to say more. "Hold on." The black cat's fur bristled. "Is Jiang Zia's story related to what you told me at the beginning?" Zhou Xuanji nodded seriously and said, "Of course it's related. But I can't tell you yet. It's an important matter and involves a shocking secret. If you know it, the sovereign might kill you." Seeing how serious he was, the black cat was stunned. If it were someone else, it might not believe it. But this brat had the exterminating divine eyes, so he must have an extraordinary background. Also, the story was very detailed and did not seem to be made up. Zhou Xuanji suddenly changed the topic and said, "Since you also have one of the 5 ultimate eyes, it means that we are on the same side. Your enemy might be my enemy and my enemy might be your enemy. Why don't you teach me how to cultivate and let me completely master the exterminating divine eyes, then I will tell you this secret. We are on the same side and I will help you escape. What do you think?" Chapter 658. The black cat was in deep thought after hearing Zhou Xuanji's words. Zhou Xuanji did not interrupt it. It would be fake if he acted too eagerly. It was better to let it think on its own with a neutral attitude. A while later. "Brat!" The black cat yelled in a frenzy. "You are messing with me. I asked you to amuse me, not to negotiate with me." Zhou Xuanji sighed. "You are one of the 5 ultimate gods. Are you willing to be imprisoned here forever? Be it a human or a cat, one must have a dream and a goal." "Be a cat?" The black cat opened its eyes wide and roared furiously, "I am barbaric ultimate god. Not a cat." The voice was so deafening that Zhou Xuanji felt that his soul was about to shatter. "Damn. Just you wait." Zhou Xuanji thought hatefully in his heart, but he looked calm and composed on the surface. Left with no choice, Zhou Xuanji could only tell it jokes. They were all corny jokes that did not hit the funny spot directly. The black cat needed time to react. The black cat was amused and burst into laughter. After 8 hours, Zhou Xuanji's stock of corny jokes was almost depleted. He could only make up the same type of corny jokes repeatedly. Gradually, the black cat lost interest. "I have amused you for so long. You can't just kill me after I'm done. Are you not satisfied?" Zhou Xuanji said as he massaged the black cat. "You are not qualified to negotiate," the black cat said lazily. Zhou Xuanji squinted his eyes and did not speak further. In the next few days he told the black cat stories every day. Fortunately they were not jokes. He told it stories like Journey to the West, strange stories from a Chinese studio, Water Margin, and Romance of the 3 Kingdoms. The black cat was mesmerized by the stories. In order for him to continue telling stories, the black cat extended his life, extending his lifespan to 1 year. Zhou Xuanji was not too happy about this but felt helpless. It seemed that the black cat really treated him like a toy. This day, Zhou Xuanji could not hold it anymore and said, "Barbaric ultimate god, are you really going to stay here forever? Don't you have any ambition?" The black cat rolled around on the ground and ignored Zhou Xuanji. Seeing this, Zhou Xuanji could only give up. He sat on the ground and began internalizing qi. A long while later, the black cat said suddenly, "If I let you out now, you will die too. There is someone waiting for you outside." Zhou Xuanji did not open his eyes, nor did he speak. The black cat's eyes widened. "You were serious about working together?" Zhou Xuanji glanced at it and said, "Are you sure you want to communicate like this? Could there be a powerful being watching over the barbaric ultimate god?" "Don't worry. I was beaten down by a paragon. Apart from a paragon, no one else is allowed to pry into the dojo of the Great Elimination. Otherwise, the rules of the paragon will be enraged, and I'll be destroyed by heaven and earth." The black cat replied with a smug look on its face as if it was not a prisoner. Zhou Xuanji nodded and said, "Since that's the case, let's work together. You help me become more powerful and after we get out I will try my best to save you. I'm a man of my word." The black cat hesitated, "But I can't guarantee that you can really save me. Do you have a way?" Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said, "To be honest, I don't have one yet because I'm new here. But I believe you definitely have one. After being imprisoned for countless years, you must have thought of countless ways." The black cat was embarrassed and did not know how to answer. It only cared about sleeping and playing. Although it had thought of ways to escape, it could not think of any, so it could only give up. Zhou Xuanji asked, "If I make a great contribution to the Kunlun Origin Court, can I request for your release?" He remembered that Yu Zhongxiu said that in the Kunlun Origin Court, other than power, contribution was important. "You can indeed. With your current power, God knows how long it will take for you to make enough contribution to save me." The black cat sighed and became discouraged immediately. Zhou Xuanji said, "Nothing is absolute. If you make a deal with me today you will have a chance to live. If you don't, you will not even have a chance to live." The black cat heard him and fell into deep thought with squinted eyes. A while later, it stood up and spat out a purple heart from its mouth, which quickly entered Zhou Xuanji's chest. Zhou Xuanji felt a chill down his spine. He seemed to have seen something sticky on the violet demon monarch's heart. A powerful energy enveloped Zhou Xuanji, helping him to assimilate the violet demon monarch's heart. He did not feel any pain but comfort. 10 breaths later, Zhou Xuanji felt that he had recovered to his peak. He stood up and stretched his body. Brat, your heart is not simple. It should be an innate creation of some world. Although it's not a supreme treasure, it will be of great help to you, especially to the exterminating divine eyes. The black cat rested its head on its front paws and said slowly. Zhou Xuanji nodded. He knew that the violet demon monarch's heart was a creation of the world. The violet demon monarch's heart was of great help to his body that was so powerful. The black cat continued, next I will teach you an energy technique. First, tell me what energy technique you are cultivating and tell me the details. Zhou Xuanji immediately told the black cat about the world Buddha art. He was not afraid that the black cat would steal it. There must be more powerful energy techniques in the Kunlun origin court. No matter how devilish Gu Qianxiao was, he could only be more powerful than the Kunlun origin court. After Zhou Xuanji finished talking about the world Buddha art, the black cat ignored him. The only outstanding thing about this energy technique is its control of magic energy. It's nothing. When you break through to Tao treading saint, your saint energy will turn into Tao energy. Tao energy repel each other. If you absorb it forcefully, it will only self-destruct, the black cat said casually. Zhou Xuanji became even more curious about Tao treading saints after hearing it. Tao energy? Great Tao energy? What kind of energy is a Tao ancestor? He resisted the urge to ask questions and continued to listen. The black cat boasted for a while before saying, I will teach you an energy technique first. Only those with the 5 ultimate eyes can cultivate it. It raised its paw, and a beam of light shot out from its paw into Zhou Xuanji's forehead. He closed his eyes and comprehended the energy technique's memory. Half an hour passed. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes slowly and praised, such an exquisite energy technique. If you cultivate it to the 10th level, it will be horrifying indeed. This energy technique was called the Greatly Divine Suppressor Technique. At the first level he could split into 10 Greatly avatars. He could control them at will without consuming any Tao energy. As long as the main body did not die, the Greatly avatars would not be destroyed. At the same time the main body could make the Greatly avatars disappear. With every level the number of Greatly avatars would increase by 10 times. At the 10th level he could have as many Greatly avatars as he wanted. Not only that, the Greatly Divine Suppressor could absorb great Tao energy. This alone surpassed the world Buddha art. Did you create this energy technique? Zhou Xuanji asked curiously. He always felt that this energy technique was incredible. The Greatly avatars and the main body were almost the same in strength. The most horrifying thing was that as long as the main body did not die, the Greatly avatars could recover immediately even if they were destroyed. If he cultivated it to the 10th level, he could create billions of Greatly avatars to fight his enemies. Not to mention the same cultivation stage, he could even kill enemies 1 or 2 cultivation stages above him. The black cat shook its head and said, this is the energy technique of the previous owner of the exterminating divine eyes. I'm not sure about its exact origin. Back then we, the 5 ultimate gods, were unstoppable in the Kunlun origin court. We killed gods and demons in our way. Chapter 659. You also know this technique? Zhou Xuanji asked curiously. How could the black cat not cultivate such a domineering energy technique? The black cat smiled smugly and said, of course I will. It's also my main technique now. I've already trained it to the 5th tier, and I can directly create 100,000 Dali clones. Although my cultivation is not as good as before, I can still easily deal with Taoist ancestors. The 5th level. Zhou Xuanji was shocked in his heart. This guy had only reached level 5. How hard would it be to reach level 10? The black cat said meaningfully, in addition to being immortal, the Greatly Avatar can also pass through the Great Tao Wall. In other words, you can control the Greatly Avatar and come and go freely in the entire Kunlun origin court. There's no fluctuation of aura, so it's hard to detect. Zhou Xuanji's eyes brightened. He felt that the Greatly Divine Suppressor technique was more and more impressive. He immediately began to cultivate the Greatly Divine Suppressor art. Very soon he sensed the Great Tao around him. There were all kinds of Great Tao. He didn't know what rules these Great Tao represented, but he could feel their existence. Their colors were also different. From his meditation vision, his surroundings were colorful, as if he was in a different dimension. In the past he could only use his will to come into contact with these great ways, but now he could directly absorb them. The power of the great Tao, which was countless times more violent than spiritual qi, burrowed into his body. In just an instant he was so frightened that he immediately opened his eyes. Hoo-hoo, he gasped for air, still in a state of shock. In that instant he felt that he was about to explode from the power of the great Tao. It was clearly just a trace. Just how terrifying was the great Tao. The black cat laughed mockingly. Ha! Look at you. The more it laughed, the happier it became. It even rolled on the ground. Zhou Xuanji said unhappily, my cultivation is too weak. Even if I learn this technique, I cannot absorb great Tao energy. What should I do? It was like giving him a mountain of gold, but he was stranded on a deserted island and couldn't use it even if he wanted to. Be patient. Practice the greatly divine suppressor art from the Overlord Sage level. When you become a Tao-treading venerable, your foundation will be more stable than other Tao-treading venerables. It's no exaggeration to say that the greatly divine suppressor art is definitely a top cultivation technique in the Kunlun origin court. The black cat said impatiently. Why was this kid so impatient? Zhou Xuanji took a deep breath and continued to try. Following that, he was scared off again and again by the power of the great Tao. A whole month passed. He could finally absorb the power of the Great Path slowly and form a Dali clone at the same time. His Great Li avatar was silver in color, like a silver shadow. It had no face and its body was exactly the same as his. The outside world. Yu Zhongxiu was meditating in the air. She opened her eyes and looked at Yu Xinzhong in front of her and sighed. Ever since Zhou Xuanji entered the danger zone, they could no longer observe his movements. All the great elimination venues had such a forbidden area, making it impossible for the outside world to observe. This made the great elimination more interesting and dramatic. Gambling houses were a big industry in the Kunlun origin court. Every divine range had a gambling house, and countless creatures competed to guess at the various great elimination venues almost every day. Yu Xinzhong waited for a month, but Zhou Xuanji did not come out. Everyone thought that Zhou Xuanji was dead, which made Yu Xinzhong emotionally unstable. His eyes were bloodshot. It wasn't easy for him to get such a huge surprise, and he didn't want it to be ruined. He couldn't accept it. He's so confident. It's impossible for him to die so easily. Yu Xinzhong kept repeating this sentence to convince himself to persevere and wait. Yu Zhongxiu's heart ached for him, but she didn't know how to comfort him. She had already said all the words she could. Now she could only wait for the result. Among the mountains, Zhou Xuanji and his Great Li avatar attacked the black cat together. They were extremely fast, like 3 flashes of light, constantly moving. The black cat stipulated that they must not touch the surrounding mountains. It wanted Zhou Xuanji to completely control the Great Li avatar. At first, the Great Li avatar crashed into the mountains easily, but it gradually became more agile. In less than half a day, the Great Li avatar no longer crashed into the mountains while chasing the black cat. The black cat stopped suddenly and scattered the Great Li avatar with a claw. Very good, it said with a smile. Your talent is outstanding indeed. I will help you refine the Great Tao energy so that you can quickly pass the foundation. After all, you don't have much time left. You're going out soon. Zhou Xuanji stopped as well. He was shocked in his heart. The Great Li avatar was as powerful as him. Didn't that mean that the black cat could kill him with a single slap? The most horrifying thing was that this guy's cultivation was far from its peak. It was definitely someone who surpassed the Tao ancestor. After that, under the black cat's urging, Zhou Xuanji sat down with his legs crossed. The black cat jumped onto his head and helped him absorb the great Tao energy. This time he felt an extremely powerful force supporting him, which reduced the impact of the great Tao energy on him. Endless great Tao energy flowed into his body, helping him grow stronger. His cultivation began to grow rapidly. Half a month later, Zhou Xuanji broke through to Overlord Saint level 5 straight away. His cultivation soared. He was much more powerful than before. Under the refinement of the great Tao energy, his saint energy was gradually transforming into Tao energy. If not for the fact that his cultivation was far from Tao treading saint, he might have broken through to Tao treading saint directly. Brat, you have too many serendipity. You might become someone who can shake the Kunlun origin court. No wonder the exterminating divine eyes chose you. The black cat looked at Zhou Xuanji and sighed in amazement. The reason why it could not kill Zhou Xuanji and even trust him was because of the exterminating divine eyes. At the thought of this, it could not help but recall the time when it was one of the 5 ultimate gods. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes and said with a smile, "If not for your help, how could I have such serendipity?" He wanted to address himself as a junior, but the black cat was too mischievous. Whenever he lowered his stance, this guy would get angry. Just like a tremor. You have already formed 3 greatly avatars. When you form 10, it will be the time you complete the first level of the greatly divine suppressor technique. You will be surprised then, the black cat said with a smile as it lay on the ground. The black cat laughed as it lay on the ground. After a pause, it continued, "All right, you can leave now and teach that guy a lesson." Zhou Xuanji raised his brow and asked, "I can already defeat him?" The black cat yawned and replied, "You two are about the same, but he can't kill you." Zhou Xuanji got up, cupped his fist and bowed before leaving. "Wait for me to come back and save you," Zhou Xuanji said without looking back. Zhou Xuanji said without turning his head. The black cat's eyes turned gentle at his words. "I hope so," it mumbled. Suddenly, its heart became heavy and sad. In the dim forbidden ground, it looked so lonely. Like an unwanted kitten, it mumbled, "Su Xian is really something. He didn't even want such a beautiful woman. It's a pity that the brat hasn't finished his story. I hope someone will teach Su Xian a lesson. Sigh, I haven't had sex for a long time. I miss it so much." Chapter 660. Outside the barren land of peaks, evil ancestor Shichan was sitting in front of a tree, quietly meditating. He suddenly opened his eyes and saw a figure walking out of the dense fog. Was Zhou Xuanji. This kid really didn't die? Evil ancestor Shichan frowned and muttered to himself. He didn't know what was hidden in this forbidden land, but he could feel that it was very dangerous, so he didn't go in. His target for coming to the Great Elimination Dojo was Zhou Xuanji, so he did not kill the other participants. He thought that since Zhou Xuanji was dead, he could cultivate here until the end. Who would have thought that this kid would actually come out? He was not the only one who was surprised. In the castle outside, the 12-star prodigy of the Longbow Divine Range is still alive. Someone exclaimed, instantly attracting the attention of hundreds of living beings. Yu Xinzhong, who was sitting there, suddenly stood up. Looking at the scene in front of him, he trembled with excitement. Yu Zhongxiu was also very excited, her beautiful eyes were filled with splendor. This guy didn't die. Zhou Xuanji's gaze pierced through the dense fog and locked onto evil ancestor Shichan under a tree in the distance. This time he had absorbed a lot of power of the Great Path, and his cultivation had broken through to the Overlord Saint 5th level. Facing evil ancestor Shichan again, he suddenly felt that this guy was not that dangerous. It's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge, but I have to take revenge today. Zhou Xuanji smiled and muttered to himself. Speaking of which, he had to thank evil ancestor Shichan. Otherwise, how could he have met barbaric ultimate god? Everything was fate. Something was not right. He couldn't say that it was his fate, lest fate was controlling his luck from behind, which was inauspicious. Zhou Xuanji took out the thunderclap sword and walked toward evil ancestor Shichan. 3 silver silhouettes appeared behind him. They were the 3 Dali clones. They were also holding swords, and the shape of the swords was also the thunderclap sword. Their light couldn't be obscured by the thick fog, causing evil ancestor Shichan to narrow his eyes. What's that? This kid actually broke through. It seems like he encountered a fortuitous encounter inside. Evil ancestor Shichan narrowed his eyes thoughtfully. It was not rare to encounter a fortuitous encounter in a dangerous place. 9 out of 10 living beings that were able to escape from the danger zone would have had some sort of fortuitous encounter. Otherwise they would have died there long ago. Zhou Xuanji suddenly charged at him, and the 3 greatly avatars followed closely behind. The distance of 100 zhang was covered in a single step. Evil ancestor Shichan quickly dodged the 4 swords. Bang! The sword chi crisscrossed and the entire forest was cut open. Dust rose into the sky and merged into the boundless fog. So fast. Evil ancestor Shichan was secretly shocked. This kid has only broken through a small realm, but why does it feel like he has become a completely different person? Before he could think further, Zhou Xuanji and the 3 greatly clones charged over from different directions. Countless sword shadows appeared out of thin air in all directions. They were densely packed. There were tens of billions of them blocking all the routes of evil ancestor Shichan, leaving him nowhere to escape. The scene was spectacular and shocking. Thousands of people had gathered in the castle to watch the battle. So powerful. What kind of fortuitous encounter did this kid get? What is hidden in that forbidden land? I think it's the barbaric ultimate god, one of the 5 ultimate gods. Isn't that guy incredibly savage? Why did he let Zhou Xuanji out? Hearing the exclamations of the people around them, Yu Xinzhong and his daughter could not contain their excitement. They did not expect Zhou Xuanji to give them another surprise. This speed of growth was worthy of a 12-star aptitude. At the same time, the primordial chaos sword shadow erupted and instantly submerged evil ancestor Shichan. The explosion burst forth with a bright and powerful light, illuminating the dark world like it was daytime. Dong! A deafening bell rang as a giant bronze bell rose into the air, counteracting the mighty sword chi. Evil ancestor Shichan was suspended in the bell, looking at Zhou Xuanji with a solemn expression. His clone is as strong as his main body? What kind of divine ability is this? The most important thing is that his clone can pass through the Great Tao Wall faster than his main body. Evil ancestor Shichan fell into deep thought. He was becoming more and more interested in Zhou Xuanji. Such a genius must be refined into a puppet by him. I can't miss it. Zhou Xuanji cast the sword fusion technique and 9-soul fusion technique, condensing Tao will and slashed. Sword Tao rules. With a flash of sword light and a deafening explosion, the giant bronze bell was directly cut in half. Evil ancestor Shichan was shocked. He cried out in shock, "How is this possible?" His right arm was cut off. If he hadn't dodged instinctively, he would have been cut in half. Zhou Xuanji and the three greatly avatars rushed into the giant bronze bell. 36 sword souls appeared behind Zhou Xuanji, crazily slashing at evil ancestor Shichan. Every time a sword soul was slashed, a new one would appear almost at the same time. When Zhou Xuanji's sword chi touched evil ancestor Shichan, it was also absorbing his magic energy. This guy wasn't a Tao-treading saint yet. Naturally, his magic energy could be absorbed by Zhou Xuanji. Evil ancestor Shichan quickly dodged. His right arm grew as a long staff appeared in his hand with 9 bells hanging on it. He waved the long staff at Zhou Xuanji. The next moment, the bells rang crisply. In an instant, 9 evil dragons flew out of the bells. They were millions of miles long, dominating the sky as they looked down at Zhou Xuanji and his 3 greatly avatars. In front of the 9 evil dragons they were so insignificant. Zhou Xuanji's expression didn't change. He immediately used the ancestor dragon sword, transforming into a 5-clawed golden dragon that soared into the sky. It also grew to millions of miles long. It was like a huge mountain range that crossed the earth as it bit at the 9 evil dragons. The 3 greatly avatars dashed along the dragon's spine, each using a different sword technique. Primordial Chaos Sword Shadow. Heavenly Sword Descent. Sky-dominating Divine Sword. Countless sword shadows poured down like a torrential rain. The huge heavenly sword tore an evil dragon into pieces. It was extremely powerful. The remaining greatly avatar brandished his long sword. Sword chi from the sky-dominating divine sword swept in all directions. It was incomparably gorgeous. Evil ancestor Shichan furrowed his brow. He didn't expect Zhou Xuanji to be so difficult to deal with. He immediately gritted his teeth, raised his left hand and waved it in the air. When his movement came to a stop, a huge red hole appeared out of thin air behind him. The edge of the hole was covered with dense and mysterious runes. One after another, figures exuding a tyrannical aura flew out. All of them were in human form. Their faces and figures were different. All of them were wearing black robes with blood-red patterns. They looked like demons from the abyss. There were a total of 79 puppets. All of them were Overlord Saints. The weakest was a 6th-level Overlord Saint. They each took out their enchanted artifacts and charged toward Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji immediately deactivated the 5-clawed golden dragon and activated the Emperor's Way Thousand-Hand Sword Buddha. The golden Buddha rose from the ground like a divine mountain that created the world. It was majestic and towering. 1,000 arms emerged, each holding a golden sword. The arms slashed wildly in all directions, and the remaining evil dragons were turned into ashes immediately. The 79 Overlord Saints charged over swiftly and dodged the storm-like attacks of the 1,000 swords. The 3 greatly avatars were blasted apart in the blink of an eye. But soon they reappeared, each restraining the 3 Overlord Saint puppets. The other puppets bombarded the 1,000-hand sword Buddha with different divine abilities. Boom, 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 explosions occurred one after another. The ground crumbled, trees were swept away and mountains were flattened. Even the thick fog and clouds in the sky were swirled into a vortex. Chapter 661. Zhou Xuanji and evil ancestor Shichan were fighting with all their strength. Zhou Xuanji wanted to get close to evil ancestor Shichan, but this guy was relying on the Overlord Saint puppet to hide far away. The 3 avatars of Great Li were constantly destroyed, but they quickly reappeared. They also killed several Overlord Saint puppets, which made evil ancestor Shichan frown slightly. If they continued fighting like this, he would definitely be the one to suffer heavy losses. Zhou Xuanji's power had already exceeded his expectations, and he understood that he could no longer obtain Zhou Xuanji. Let's stop. Rather than letting both sides suffer, why don't we sit down and talk? You should be able to sense that there are many existences spying on you from afar. Evil ancestor Shichan asked, his voice clearly reaching Zhou Xuanji's ears. Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes and stopped. The other Overlord Saint puppets stopped almost at the same time. The three greatly avatars came up behind Zhou Xuanji and stood back to back, like three sharp legendary swords. Zhou Xuanji asked, "What do you want to talk about?" Evil ancestor Shichan was very strong, which made him think of Emperor Zhao. Emperor Zhao also had many puppets, but they were nothing compared to evil ancestor Shichan's Overlord Saint puppet. Evil ancestor Shichan flew over and stopped 10 feet away from him. He said leisurely, "Your potential is very strong beyond my expectations. Do you want to join hands in the future?" Zhou Xuanji laughed, "You wanted to kill me before and now you're begging me to cooperate with you. Don't you think you're too much?" Evil ancestor Shichan shook his head and couldn't help laughing. He then said seriously, "This is the law of the Kunlun Origin Court. There are no eternal enemies. You are new here, so it's best to get to know some people from other divine ranges. Only then will you know whether the longbow divine range is good or not." This sentence made Yu Xinzhong, who was in the castle outside, curse loudly. Too shameless. Not only did they poach people, but they also trampled on the longbow divine range. The other spectators were all ridiculing Yu Xinzhong. Most of them wanted the longbow divine range to hand over Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji was really not suitable to stay in the longbow divine range. Throughout the history of the longbow divine range, there had never been a 9-star genius. A divine range like this wanted to dominate a 12-star genius? Aren't they afraid of bursting to death? Yu Xinzhong's face turned purple when he heard this. He wanted to flare up, but he was afraid of making too many enemies. Yu Zhongxiu was also very angry, and her hands were tightly clenched into fists. She could only turn her anger into anticipation, hoping that Zhou Xuanji could stay in the longbow divine range forever and lead the longbow divine range to become stronger. At this moment, Zhou Xuanji spoke. "Scram. The next time we meet, it's either you die or I die," Zhou Xuanji said expressionlessly. Upon hearing this, evil ancestor Shichan's face instantly turned cold. Evil ancestor Shichan didn't say any nonsense and directly turned to leave. Seeing how tough Zhou Xuanji was, Yu Xinzhong let out a loud roar to vent his displeasure. The other spectators snorted in disdain, thinking that Zhou Xuanji was crazy. Such a stubborn person would not live long. After evil ancestor Shichan left, Zhou Xuanji flew toward another place with a strong aura of life. Since there were so many worms that wanted to kill him, he would just deliver himself to them. Seeing Zhou Xuanji force evil ancestor Shichan to retreat, the creatures who wanted to make a move were naturally frightened. They didn't dare to overestimate themselves anymore and fled. It had to be said that these creatures were all very powerful, and they all had their own ways of escaping. Zhou Xuanji was unable to catch up to a single one of them. Finally, Zhou Xuanji stopped halfway up the hill and began cultivating. He brought out the bodies of the 4 demon gods and scattered them in all directions. They were 10 feet away from each other. If an enemy attacked, he could react in an instant. Seeing that Zhou Xuanji had once again entered a state of cultivation, Yu Xinzhong and his daughter no longer panicked. Even evil ancestor Shichan couldn't do anything to Zhou Xuanji. The outcome was already set. No one could eliminate Zhou Xuanji. Time flew by. About 2 months later, the great elimination was finally over. Zhou Xuanji felt an extremely powerful force wrapping around him before he was teleported away. When he opened his eyes again, he was back in the ancient castle. He was surrounded by a sea of people. He saw evil ancestor Shichan at a glance, and evil ancestor Shichan was also looking at him. When their eyes met, evil ancestor Shichan made a gesture of cutting his throat. In response, Zhou Xuanji's lips curled up. He slightly raised his chin, revealing a contemptuous smile. Evil ancestor Shichan quickly left. This enmity had already been formed. He must be prepared early. With Zhou Xuanji's talent, he would definitely advance by leaps and bounds. At that time, evil ancestor Shichan had entered the Kunlun Origin Court much earlier than Zhou Xuanji. God knew how many tens of thousands of years he would have to wait to meet him again in the Great Elimination. Zhou Xuanji quickly flew up to Yu Xinzhong and his daughter. Good boy. Good boy. You are so proud of us. How about it, do you like my little daughter? I will betroth her to you directly. Yu Xinzhong excitedly patted Zhou Xuanji's shoulder. Yu Zhongxiu, who was next to him, became shy after hearing this. Zhou Xuanji shook his head with a smile. He didn't agree. He had a good impression of Yu Zhongxiu, but he didn't like her. The two didn't have a deep interaction. If he married her, wouldn't Zhou Xuanji have an extra burden? If the Longbow Divine Range was in trouble in the future, he wouldn't be able to escape. He would have to help. Just thinking about it made him feel a headache. There was no gratitude between him and the Longbow Divine Range. There was only mutual benefit. Everyone around looked at Zhou Xuanji in amazement. After today, Zhou Xuanji had completely established himself in the Kunlun Origin Court. They quickly left. After leaving the ancient castle, Zhou Xuanji asked, "It is said that there are many places in the Kunlun Origin Court suitable for cultivation and comprehension of the Great Tao. How can I go there?" He had heard about this from the Black Cat. There were some cultivation places that could help him become stronger quickly. In every origin city, there is a Tao Tower that requires merit points to enter. After we return, I will give you my merit points and personally take you there. Yu Xinzhong laughed heartily. As the head of the Yu family, he had no lack of merit points. Merit points were the most important currency of the Kunlun Origin Court. As long as you had enough merit points, you could have anything you wanted. The so-called merit points were related to one's contribution to the Kunlun Origin Court. The specific missions could be accepted by the various divine ranges. This also ensured that the missions were monopolized by the powerful divine ranges. After completing the mission, he would head to the origin city to exchange for merit points. The origin city was the main city of the Kunlun Origin Court. It was located between the various divine ranges and wasn't much smaller than the divine ranges. Zhou Xuanji could not wait to cultivate the greatly divine suppressor technique. After returning to the Longbow Divine Ranges Yu family's giant city, Zhou Xuanji returned to his room to rest. Yu Xinzhong went to report the news and prepare merit points for Zhou Xuanji. The fact that Qiu Hu, Xing Tiandao, and Si Mingyan had yet to return worried him. The next day, the three finally returned. They were all seriously injured. After landing, they had to support each other. Zhou Xuanji came to the courtyard and took out the Holy Light Redemption Sword to treat them. "Master, how are you?" Qiu Hu asked weakly as though he had lost half of his life. Zhou Xuanji replied calmly, "Not bad. I broke through a small level." The three looked at each other in dismay and smiled bitterly. Comparisons were odious. Chapter 662. Qiu Hu, Xing Tiandao, and Si Mingyan returned to the house to recuperate. Although they had successfully teamed up in the Great Elimination, their souls had been injured, and they could not recover in a short period of time. However, they were still very excited. After all, they had obtained the opportunity to break through to the Sage Realm in addition to escaping from death. This was not the Heavenly Law universe. Becoming a sage did not require the recognition of the Heavenly Law. With magic power and comprehension, everything would fall into place. 3 days later, Yu Xinzhong finally came to Zhou Xuanji. He asked Zhou Xuanji to take out his identity medallion. Under Zhou Xuanji's gaze, Yu Xinzhong also took out his ID card. The two ID cards were placed together and glowed. Shortly after, Yu Xinzhong returned the medallion to Zhou Xuanji. "Scan it with your spiritual force and you will be able to see your merit points. Some missions come with other rewards. If you are able to complete such missions in the future, these rewards will also be recorded in your identity card." Yu Xinzhong said with a smile. During this period of time, he had been in a very good mood, and he was usually grinning from ear to ear. Zhou Xuanji immediately scanned his divine will into his identity medallion. Immediately after, he saw a screen of light that only he could see. It was like the attribute list of the Supreme Legendary Sword System. Merit points, 84321, was this a lot of points? He was too embarrassed to ask directly, so he opened his eyes and nodded at Yu Xinzhong. "Since you have already passed the first elimination, from now on, you can merge your identity card into your identity imprint. This will prevent it from being stolen or lost." Yu Xinzhong reminded. The more he looked at Zhou Xuanji, the more he liked him. He was thinking about how to marry Yu Zhongxiu to this guy. As long as he settled down, this kid would be able to stay in the Longbow Divine Range. Zhou Xuanji nodded but did not fuse the ID medallion into his right arm. He felt that it was not safe to do so. What if the medallion exploded? He still chose to put it in the Supreme Storage. The Supreme Warehouse was at least another space. "Can you take me to the Dao Pagoda in Origin City today?" Zhou Xuanji asked. Yu Xinzhong nodded and turned around to lead the way with a smile. He sighed in his heart. So this kid was a cultivation maniac. With such a terrifying aptitude, he was still thinking about cultivating all day long. It was really unreasonable. Under Yu Xinzhong's lead, Zhou Xuanji left the Longbo Divine Range again. They passed through the spatial barrier of the Divine Range. What entered Zhou Xuanji's eyes were massive pillars of light that looked like towers. They rose from the dense fog at the bottom to the top where no one could see. Divine Vein. This was his first time seeing the scene outside the Divine Range. The Kunlun Cosmos. The Kunlun Cosmos was filled with Kunlun essence energy, especially at the bottom and top. The gray fog-like Kunlun essence energy condensed into two oceans. Those divine veins were interspersed, like lines connecting the top and bottom of the Kunlun Cosmos. They were of different colors. Each divine range was massive. Even though they were far away, they still gave Zhou Xuanji a strong visual impact. Countless creatures moved about in the Kunlun universe. There were also many huge cities between the divine veins. From a distance they looked like pearls flickering with light. Apart from those divine ranges, you have to be careful of many other spaces. They might look ordinary, but they might have already been occupied by some divine ranges. If you are not careful and enter the territory of other divine ranges, they have the right to kill you. Many outsiders didn't distinguish clearly and died without knowing why, Yu Xinzhong explained to Zhou Xuanji. Yu Xinzhong introduced to Zhou Xuanji. He pointed to some fluctuating spatial areas. Those spaces were where the divine ranges were produced. There might be a vast world or a city in an independent realm hidden inside. Zhou Xuanji listened carefully. He suddenly looked up and saw a huge vortex at the top of the Kunlun universe. There was a halo in the center of the vortex that seemed to lead to another universe. Stop looking. That's the center of power of the Kunlun Origin Court, the domain of gods. Even the sovereign is there. Anyone who enters without being summoned by the Origin Court will be turned into ashes without exception, Yu Xinzhong said, shaking his head. Yu Xinzhong shook his head. Every outsider who entered the Kunlun Cosmos would be attracted by the deity domain. Domain of gods. The name was really pretentious. Zhou Xuanji curled his lip and didn't ask further. Following Yu Xinzhong, he entered the nearest origin city. The bright light on the surface of the origin city gave off a warm feeling. Passing through the layer of light, there was a huge city below. Countless towers towered into the clouds. At the edge of the giant city was a sea of white clouds that looked like a cloud wall. The streets were wide, the buildings were tall, and the shapes of the buildings were all kinds of strange. Looking left and right, he could see many creatures going in and out. Some were riding on mounts and some were stepping on artifacts. Their cultivations were all different. The aura of the saints was the most common. But he also sensed many unfathomable auras. Some of the creatures even gave him the feeling that he was facing the black cat and old ancestor Longbo. Yu Xinzhong brought him and landed in front of a Dao pagoda. The Dao pagoda was completely black like a black pillar. Every 100 feet there was a door that could only be flown out, not in. In front of the door at the bottom, a group of soldiers in black armor were guarding. All of them had Saint Realm cultivation. The leader was a Dao-treading saint. Go in directly. Someone will introduce you to them. I will pick you up after a year, Yu Xinzhong said with a smile. Yu Xinzhong said with a smile. The merit points he gave Zhou Xuanji allowed him to cultivate in a decent cultivation room for a year or two. Zhou Xuanji nodded and walked in. Only after seeing Zhou Xuanji walk through the door did he leave with peace of mind. After entering the Dao Tower, Zhou Xuanji looked up and saw several spiral stone steps at the edge of the Dao Tower, leading to higher floors. The first floor was nearly 100 feet high and covered an area of a few miles. Many creatures were meditating and cultivating. There was a stone platform in front of him. 26 charming women were sitting on benches. Behind them was a light screen with a few lines of words. 1-star Dao room, 10 merit points a day. 2-star Dao room, 100 merit points a day. 3-star Dao room, 1,000 merit points a day. 4-star Dao room, 10,000 merit points a day. There were 7-star Dao rooms in total. The highest one cost 10 million merit points a day. Zhou Xuanji cursed in his heart. So Yu Xinzhong is this poor? He took a deep breath and walked up to the stone platform. He took out his ID card and was about to speak. At this moment, a young man in animal skin clothes rushed over and said anxiously, I want to challenge the breakthrough ranking. Here are 10,000 merit points. The young man had long hair like a wild lion. His face was rugged and his voice was extremely loud. Okay, please wait a moment, senior. The woman in front of him took the identity card and registered him. Zhou Xuanji asked curiously, "Brother, what is the breakthrough ranking?" The wild young man glanced at him and said weakly, "The breakthrough ranking is a ranking for gambling merit points. You have to pay at least 10,000 merit points. If you can break through quickly in the Dao room, you can get a huge amount of merit points. Every time someone enters the breakthrough ranking, each Dao tower will show it. This is also an opportunity to become famous." Zhou Xuanji's eyes lit up. He was in need of merit points. Chapter 663. Hello, Senior. You can go directly to the vacant one-star room. The moment you step in, the breakthrough ranking challenge will begin immediately. The Dao Pagoda woman returned the ID card to the wild young man and said with a charming smile. Her eyes seemed to be hinting at something. The wild young man ignored her and turned to leave. Zhou Xuanji turned to the woman facing him and asked, "How long can I challenge the breakthrough ranking with 10,000 merit points?" The woman facing him looked a little cold and elegant. She was still wearing a bewitching makeup. She replied, 3 months. The one-star room was only 10 merit points a day. 3 months would be more than 900 merit points. This is really a gamble. Zhou Xuanji continued to ask, "What is the reward for the challenge?" The cold and elegant woman patiently replied, "The Dao Pagoda has a spirit. It can measure your progress according to your speed of breakthrough. It's hard to explain the specific criteria. The speed of cultivation in different realms can't be compared. It also takes into account your own aptitude. You just need to cultivate hard and enter the top 10,000 of the tower's breakthrough ranking. You will get 20,000 merit points. If you enter the top 10,000 of the citywide breakthrough ranking, you will get 100,000 merit points. This is the lowest reward for each threshold." Zhou Xuanji understood. He immediately took out his ID card and said, "I want to challenge the breakthrough ranking." The women around him immediately agreed after hearing his question. They all shook their heads and laughed. Another idiot with wishful thinking. 12-star aptitude. The cold and elegant woman suddenly exclaimed, drawing the attention of all the creatures on the first floor of the hall. The women behind the stone platform hurriedly gathered together and confirmed that the ID card showed 12-star aptitude. The most recent 12-star aptitude, Zhou Xuanji of the Longbow Divine Range. Zhou Xuanji remained calm, ignoring the gazes around him as he waited for the cold and elegant woman to register. The cold and elegant woman noticed his gaze. Her cheeks turned red as she quickly began to register Zhou Xuanji. He is Zhou Xuanji? 12-star aptitude. He is the only one in the Kunlun origin court. I just got the news that even evil ancestor Shichan suffered a loss in front of him. Really? 12-star. TSK he is going to challenge the breakthrough ranking. I guess he can reach the top of the tower and the top 100 in the city? The creatures pointed at him and discussed in a low voice. No one dared to come forward and strike up a conversation. Because Zhou Xuanji did not look friendly at first glance. His face was expressionless and he might get angry. After all, geniuses were all arrogant. Soon, the cold-looking lady returned the ID medallion to Zhou Xuanji and said carefully, "Senior, hello. You can go to the empty one-star room directly. The moment you step in, the breakthrough ranking challenge will begin immediately." She heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, she did not offend Zhou Xuanji just now. Zhou Xuanji nodded and left with his identity medallion. The first floor was a waiting area. Some star-ranked Dao rooms were full, so one could only wait. Of course, most of the creatures were there to freeload the free spirit chi. The spirit chi and the Great Path in the Dao Pagoda were stronger than in the outside world. Zhou Xuanji walked up the stone steps and came to the second level. He saw rows of stone houses, and the doors were marked with the words, 1 star without spirit, or 1 star occupied. He didn't look around. He quickly found a 1-star stone house without any spiritual energy and pushed the door open. After closing the door, he found a groove on the side, so he took out his identity card and pressed it. With a bang, a violent spiritual energy filled the entire stone house. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. So awesome. The space inside the house was quite large. It was 10 feet in length, width, and height. From the outside it looked like a completely different room. He put away the ID medallion, came to the center of the house, and sat down cross-legged. The 4 demon gods appeared, responsible for absorbing the spiritual energy. He began cultivating the greatly divine suppressor technique, absorbing Dao energy. The great Dao here. Zhou Xuanji was pleasantly surprised. The great Dao in the Dao room was much stronger than the one he felt in the Yu clan's guest room. He quickly immersed himself in cultivation. At the same time, The news that a 12-star genius had joined the Breakthrough Ranking Challenge spread quickly. In less than a day, the whole city knew about it. The 12-star genius was really eye-catching. Many geniuses immediately entered various Dao towers to challenge the Breakthrough Ranking, trying to stop Zhou Xuanji's ranking. This was a good opportunity to step on a 12-star genius to become famous. Even if he failed, there was no loss. Zhou Xuanji was oblivious to the outside world's turmoil. He was focused on cultivating the greatly divine suppressor technique. The next day he refined another greatly avatar. From then on he could refine another greatly avatar every day. 7 days later, 10 greatly avatars stood behind him. He had also officially mastered the first level of the greatly divine suppressor technique. The reason why he was so fast was thanks to barbaric ultimate god's teachings. In the battle with evil ancestor Shichan, Zhou Xuanji had learned a lot. This time, with the help of the Dao Room, he succeeded naturally. The first level was actually not difficult. After all, he had barbaric ultimate god to guide him. What was difficult was what came after. Even someone as powerful as barbaric ultimate god had only reached the 5th level. After breaking through the first level, Zhou Xuanji's cultivation speed doubled. He absorbed Dao energy faster. Although he was still cautious, his efficiency was more than 5 times higher than before. He was in a good mood, immersed in the comfort of Dao energy tempering his body. As he absorbed more and more Dao energy, the great Dao's rejection of him became weaker and weaker. He had already embarked on the cultivation path of Dao treading saint ahead of time. At this moment, on the first floor of the Dao Tower, where he was, the scene on the light screen behind the stone platform changed. The list of the top 10,000 was changing. The top 10,000 here only took the best results of the creatures. So even if there were 10,000 people on the list, there were still few changes. Zhou Xuanji's name appeared at the bottom of the breakthrough ranking. Seeing this, the creatures gathered on the first floor cried out in surprise. He entered the top 10,000 in just 7 days? He's still moving forward. Wow, he suddenly entered the top 500. The 12-star genius is too powerful. He's really powerful. It's not impossible for him to enter the first place in 3 months. The creatures sighed in amazement. They ignored a message that appeared at the top of the screen. It was about Yi Jun breaking through to the 10th place in the city. The results of the top 100 in the city would be announced in all the Dao towers. It was said that there was also the strongest breakthrough ranking, which was the top 100 in all the Dao towers. It was very difficult for new names to appear on that ranking. Time continued to pass. 10 days later, Zhou Xuanji entered the top 1,000. His movements had already attracted many creatures to come and watch. The first floor of the Dao Tower was already overcrowded. The Longbow Divine Range also received news that Zhou Xuanji was challenging the breakthrough ranking. Yu Xinzhong, Yu Zhongxiu, and dozens of experts from the Longbow Divine Range hurried over. This kid is really troublesome. Yu Xinzhong sighed, but his tone was very excited. He liked this side of Zhou Xuanji. The more impressive the better. The more famous the Longbow Divine Range was, the more geniuses it could attract to join. Chapter 664. A storm was brewing outside, but Zhou Xuanji was still focused on cultivation. His cultivation was constantly growing, and when his physical body had completely transformed into a body of the Great Path, the saint power that he had generated would become the power of the Great Path. At this rate, I will break through to Overlord Saint level 6 soon. Zhou Xuanji thought happily. The great Dao energy was indeed powerful. If not for the old immortal teaching him how to comprehend the Dao realm, he would not have been able to cultivate so smoothly. Not only that, but his violet demon monarch's heart could also perfectly withstand the great Dao energy. All the serendipity added up to make him what he was. None of them could be missing. He cultivated while trying to comprehend the greatly divine suppressor technique. The greatly divine suppressor technique was indeed peerless. Just the qi circulation technique alone was ever-changing. With his current attainments, he was still far from reaching level 2. But a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. He was not discouraged but was full of fighting spirit. He loved the feeling of growing stronger. Time passed day by day. Halfway through the 3-month period of the breakthrough ranking, Zhou Xuanji successfully reached the top 10 of the breakthrough ranking and the top 1,000 in the entire city. This had already shaken the entire origin city. It even attracted the attention of the nearby divine ranges. Old ancestor Longbow came to the back of Yu Xinzhong and his daughter. Before he could speak, he heard Yu Xinzhong's body trembling as he mumbled, "Keep going forward. Keep going forward." Old ancestor Longbow shook his head in laughter and said, Xinzhong, did you give him too few merit points? Or else, why would he take the breakthrough ranking challenge? He sounded a little dissatisfied. He thought that Zhou Xuanji could grow stronger for a while before taking the breakthrough ranking challenge, which might shake the entire Kunlun Origin Court. After all, there were not many 12-star geniuses in the Kunlun Origin Court. Yu Xinzhong heard him and immediately bowed. Old ancestor, I was wrong. I thought, he said in fear. Old ancestor Longbow stared at him and scolded, if you can't treat him wholeheartedly, hand him over to the other clans. Yu Xinzhong was almost scared out of his wits. He quickly promised. He thought that Zhou Xuanji just wanted to give it a try, which was why he gave him 80,000 merit points. If he knew this, he would have given him hundreds of thousands or even millions of merit points. Old ancestor Longbow, your Longbow divine range is truly blessed. A burst of laughter rang out from the side, causing Longbow Patriarch Yu Xinzhong and the others to turn their heads. They saw a middle-aged man walking over with large strides, escorted by several dozen subordinates. As soon as he saw him, Longbow Ancestor's smile quickly disappeared, and he even snorted coldly. Outside the Kunlun Origin Court, a black iron palace was floating in the Void Realm. Inside the hall, the Void Boundary God sat on the main seat, and the Void Boundary 13 Emperors half knelt in the hall. Barbarian God Huang Luo, Buddha Yang Ling, the Old Beggar, Gu Qianxia, and Su Qing were imprisoned next to him. The atmosphere was extremely oppressive, and it caused Barbarian God Huang Luo and the others to be on the verge of being unable to catch their breaths. The Flame Emperor braced himself and said, Chief God, we are useless. Please punish us. He had waited in the heavenly law universe for so many years, but he still let the exterminating divine eyes slip away. The other great sovereigns followed suit. Don't worry, Chief God. We will do our best to find Zhou Xuanji. We have found old ancestor Yinxin's whereabouts. He just left the Kunlun Origin Court. He sold Zhou Xuanji to the Kunlun Origin Court as a slave. There is still hope to find him. This brat is too lucky. The Void Boundary 13 Emperors were furious. They kept cursing Zhou Xuanji to vent their emotions. A mere overlord saint had made them so embarrassed. How could they accept it? Let's end this here. The Void Boundary God suddenly said, stunning the Void Boundary 13 Emperors. The 6 people in the cage were also stunned. What does this mean? Could it be that Zhou Xuanji is already? The old beggar trembled all over, holding his head in pain. Looking back at his past, he had accepted so many disciples, but none of them had a good ending. Gu Qianxia frowned, staring at the Void Boundary God. Zhou Xuanji joined the Longbow Divine Range and was tested to be a 12-star genius. Now the Longbow Divine Range is fully nurturing him. It won't be long before his status surpasses mine. After some time, choose one of you to go and apologize to me, the Void Boundary God said expressionlessly. The Void Boundary God said expressionlessly. He tried to pretend that he didn't care, but in fact, his heart was in turmoil. Wah! The Void Boundary 13 Emperors were shocked. The old beggar and the others also opened their eyes wide. They couldn't believe their ears. What? How long has it been? Zhou Xuanji had already established himself in the Kunlun Origin Court? The Water Emperor said in a trembling voice, how is this possible? 12-star. How could such a prodigy be born in that heavenly law universe? The other Void Boundary Emperors were also in a daze. An unprecedented fear welled up in their hearts. A 12-star prodigy? If Zhou Xuanji grew up, what kind of height would he reach? The more they thought about it, the more afraid they became. Void Boundary God looked at the old beggar and the others and said, do you want to live? Barbarian God Huang Luo immediately came back to his senses and nodded vigorously. Yes, we can help you. Ask Zhou Xuanji for mercy. Buddha Yang Ling's mouth twitched. He really wanted to say that he could speak in front of Zhou Xuanji, but at this moment this was all they could do. Otherwise, in order to silence them, the Void Boundary God would probably kill them. I hope you can understand the situation. Even if he is dissatisfied with us, it is impossible for him to cause trouble for us because we are directly under the control of the Origin Court. I am doing this so that both sides will not fall out with each other so that we can meet each other in the future. The Void Boundary God said indifferently. Upon hearing this, Barbarian God Huang Luo nodded vigorously. The old beggar and Gu Qianxia were still in a trance. They could not imagine how Zhou Xuanji did it. 12-star aptitude, how did he prove it? Too many doubts occupied their hearts, making it difficult for them to come back to their senses for a long time. Inside the Dao Tower. Boom. Zhou Xuanji finally broke through and reached Overlord Saint level 6. There was still a month before the end of the breakthrough ranking. When he realized that he could not make any progress in the greatly divine suppressor technique, he began to calm his mind. He was preaching the great Tao's voice to himself. In this absolute tranquility, his cultivation was actually increasing at an even faster rate. At this moment, the ground floor was already crowded with people. All of them came because of the fame of Zhou Xuanji. They wanted to see Zhou Xuanji's elegance. More than 50 divine ranges had sent their people. Time continued to pass. Demon god Nanming became an overlord saint, perhaps because he was not a living being or because he did not encounter the lightning tribulation in the Tao Tower. 3 days later, demon god Jihuang broke through to overlord saint level 1. Demon god Tianwu broke through to overlord saint level 1. 2 days later, the demon ancestor also broke through to overlord saint level 1. So far, Zhou Xuanji's 4 demon god avatars had all reached the overlord saint level. His physical strength had also transformed and reached an incredible level. This did not disturb Zhou Xuanji. He was still comprehending the great Tao. In this state of absolute peace, he seemed to be in another world. The great Tao around him seemed to be alive, hovering around him joyfully. Chapter 665. With only 10 days left before the 3-month deadline, Zhou Xuanji became the first on the breakthrough ranking and the 36th in the entire city. With the cultivation of Overlord Saint, it was his first time challenging the breakthrough ranking. It was already amazing enough. One should know that most of the top 10,000 cultivators in the city had challenged the breakthrough ranking countless times to reach their current ranking. However, Cloud City had a lot of people. The strength of Cloud City was determined by the surrounding divine ranges. Although Zhou Xuanji's 12-star aptitude was devilish, it could only be in this area. In Cloud City, which was among the top 1,000 divine ranges, the breakthrough ranking was even more terrifying. In the last 10 days, Zhou Xuanji could not continue to break through, but he was still very satisfied. When he walked out of the Tao room, he found many creatures wandering in the corridor. When they saw him, they all turned to look at him. Zhou Xuanji calmly walked toward the stone steps at the edge. He was in a good mood and was still thinking about his next cultivation plan. He wanted to take root in the Tao Tower. When he came to the first floor, he saw a sea of people below. Countless creatures were looking at him. Well done. Yu Xinzhong waved his hand excitedly, without the demeanor of a clan lord. Yu Zhongxiu also waved at Zhou Xuanji. The entire first floor was in an uproar. He is Zhou Xuanji? Overlord Saint level 6. With such cultivation he became the first in the tower? I don't believe it. What a handsome young man. Did he really rush up from another low-level universe? 12-star aptitude. All the creatures began discussing among themselves. Most of them looked at him with burning passion in their eyes. Zhou Xuanji came to the stone platform in a flash. Ignoring the gazes around him, he took out his ID medallion and asked the cold-looking woman who received him before, "I'm in the breakthrough ranking, right? How many merit points can I get?" He had already heard the discussions of the other creatures and knew his ranking. The cold-looking woman took over his ID medallion and said respectfully, "You are ranked 25th in the whole city. You have received 2.5 million merit points." Zhou Xuanji was shocked. So much? He became rich overnight? The surrounding creatures all looked at him with admiration and admiration. Yu Xinzhong was a little embarrassed. He gave Zhou Xuanji more than 80,000 merit points, but Zhou Xuanji earned 2.5 million merit points straight away. It was a slap to his face. Old Ancestor Longbow walked up to Zhou Xuanji and said with a smile, "My little friend, you're really awesome. It's all my fault. I didn't know that you needed merit points. And Yu Xinzhong, that brat, is really something. Without merit points, he doesn't even know how to use the clan storage." As he spoke, he deliberately glared at Yu Xinzhong. Yu Xinzhong hurriedly smiled apologetically and apologized to Zhou Xuanji, claiming that it was his inconsideration. Zhou Xuanji could only laugh but did not hold a grudge. He waved his hand and said, "It's not a big deal. I'm just curious. I can cultivate and earn merit points at the same time. Of course I want to try. Even if he gives me a lot of merit points, I will still try." Yu Xinzhong felt grateful to Zhou Xuanji for giving him a way out. He had given Zhou Xuanji money, but Zhou Xuanji did not mind. Instead, he was grateful. It sounded strange, but it was the truth. People from other divine ranges swarmed toward Zhou Xuanji, trying to get close to him. Some even invited Zhou Xuanji to join their divine ranges. At this moment, Zhou Xuanji enjoyed the treatment of being surrounded by stars. Old Ancestor Longbow immediately asked someone to stop them. he furiously shouted, "All of you get out of my way. I'm still here. Who dares to poach me?" For Zhou Xuanji, he no longer cared about offending others. Zhou Xuanji knocked on the table of the stone platform and asked, "Is there no order in your Dao Tower?" Hearing this, the cold-looking woman immediately asked the other women next to her to call for help. After 3 breaths, dong, a bell rang in the tower, deafening everyone. Except for Zhou Xuanji and the people of Longbo Divine Range, all the other creatures were moved out. The Dao Tower is an important place. No noise. A majestic voice came from the top of the Dao Tower. Even the creatures outside the tower could hear it. Old Ancestor Longbo let out a long sigh. He patted Zhou Xuanji's shoulder and said with a smile, "Little friend Xuanji, I didn't misjudge you." Zhou Xuanji's actions had proven his position. He swore in his heart that he would never mistreat Zhou Xuanji. If such a genius wanted to leave, there would definitely be a lot of divine ranges willing to take him in. But until today, Zhou Xuanji had never mentioned this matter. He didn't ask other divine ranges either. He just wanted to focus on cultivation. A genius who could be so focused on cultivation was worth cultivating with all their might. For the next period of time, I plan to cultivate here for a long time, Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. The past 3 months made him feel very good and he could not wait to continue. Next, his goal was a higher level Dao room. He wanted to break through to the Dao Treading Saint realm as soon as possible. I will send someone to wait in front of the Dao Tower. If you come out, you can look for him directly. He will wear the uniform of our Longbo Divine Range. Old Ancestor Longbo nodded with a smile. In his heart, he was thinking about how to rope in Zhou Xuanji. Marry the proud daughter of the Divine Range to him? Old Ancestor Longbo couldn't help but look at Yu Zhongxiu. His eyes became thoughtful. After a while, the cold-looking woman returned the identity medallion to Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji chatted with Old Ancestor Longbo and the others for a while before turning around and walking up the stone steps. Such an ascetic cultivation maniac, Yu Xinzhong sighed in amazement. If he had such a talent, he might be able to live a carefree life and cultivate occasionally. One day was equivalent to 1,000 days of hard work. Old Ancestor Longbo looked at Yu Zhongxiu and chuckled, "Xiu, what do you think of him?" Yu Zhongxiu heard him and lowered her head shyly. On the other side, Zhou Xuanji flew up the stone steps. He planned to enter the 4-star Dao room, which would cost him 10,000 merit points a day. By then he would save tens of thousands of merit points to challenge the breakthrough ranking again. The 4-star Dao rooms were on the 20th floor and above. There were not many rooms here and very few living beings came and went. He found a Dao room without spirit and walked in. After closing the door, he placed the identity medallion into the groove. Boom! The Dao room trembled violently. Spiritual chi that far exceeded that of a 1-star Dao room exploded. He could even sense the aura of the great Dao directly. The corner of his mouth curled up as he muttered, "This is the feeling." He sat down cross-legged and took out the 4 demon god bodies to focus on cultivation. He also took out the 24-rank deep black lotus to absorb the spiritual chi here to strengthen the demon realm, the world in the lotus, the northern wilderness region, and the Milky Way. Time passed day by day as he cultivated. A month later, he broke through to Overlord Saint level 7, and the 4 demon god bodies reached Overlord Saint level 2. His Dao will grew stronger day by day. If he used Sword Dao rules, his damage would be dozens of times more powerful than during the Great Elimination. He was still immersed in cultivation and did not think about the world. In the blink of an eye, another 5 months passed. He broke through to Overlord Saint level 8, and his demon god bodies all reached Overlord Saint level 4. When he opened his eyes, he felt so good that he could explode. The saint energy in his body had transformed, and it faintly contained the profoundness of Dao energy. Compared to when he first entered, his divine will was more than 100 times stronger. Chapter 666. After breaking through, Zhou Xuanji stretched his neck, got up, and stored away the demon god's body and the 24-rank deep black lotus. He was ready to go out for a walk. Cultivating all the time wasn't a good thing. He needed to relax properly. He wanted to see the local customs of the origin city. After leaving the 4-star Dao room, he walked down the stairs to the 1st floor and walked out of the Dao Tower under the respectful and curious gazes of the creatures. Now his portrait had spread all over the city. Almost every creature knew his face. As soon as he walked out, a man from the Longbo Divine Range walked over quickly. "Senior Zhou, what can I do for you?" The man asked respectfully, looking nervous. The person in front of him was the treasure of the Longbow Divine Range. If he didn't treat him well, he would be finished. Zhou Xuanji replied, "Nothing, I just want to walk around." He couldn't see through this person's cultivation. He should be a Dao-treading saint. It was impossible for the Longbow Divine Range to send a Saint Realm subordinate to wait for him. The man immediately said, "I can lead the way. Wherever you want to go, I will take you there. If there's anything you don't understand, I can also tell you." Zhou Xuanji hesitated for a moment before nodding. "What's your name?" "You can call me Qingjiu." "Okay." Zhou Xuanji led Qingjiu toward the street. The origin city was very big and lively. Many creatures came and went. No matter where they went, they could see creatures descending from the sky. The most important thing was that there was no law enforcement team here. Even so, there would be no fighting on the street. At most, there would be quarrels. By the way, senior, if you have time, you can go and get a vocation. With your 12-star aptitude, you should be able to get a very good position. It will give you more power in each origin city, Qingjiu reminded. Zhou Xuanji glanced at him upon hearing this. "Oh, can I become a soul guardian?" Qingjiu was stunned. "What is a soul guardian? Could it be?" He swallowed his saliva and asked, "Are you talking about the legendary soul source pool?" Zhou Xuanji nodded slightly, which almost made Qingjiu faint. "Isn't that a legend?" He smiled bitterly and said, "I'm afraid not. You can only choose a vocation under the realm of gods. If you want, I can take you to the vocation palace at any time." Zhou Xuanji smiled and asked, "Is there a vocation palace in this origin city? Is every city's profession palace the same?" Qingjiu nodded and said, "It's the same. The occupation palace mainly introduces all the occupations in the Kunlun universe. Some occupations have to go to a specific place to be tested, such as Void Boundary Deity, Void Boundary Emperor, Great Tao Master, Universe Prime God, and so on. Even Void Boundary Gods could take the test?" Zhou Xuanji squinted his eyes and became more interested in the vocation palace. If he wanted to settle down in the Kunlun Origin Court, he needed a job. Not only that, the professions don't belong to the divine ranges. They have direct superiors. This way they can prevent some geniuses from being killed by the divine ranges. Qingjiu continued his introduction. He then raised his hand and signaled Zhou Xuanji to walk over there. The two of them walked towards the vocation palace. Along the way, Qingjiu introduced Zhou Xuanji to various professions. From small shop managers selling all kinds of things, to big ones like the Master of Gods. In the Kunlun Origin Court there were also deity positions. Deity positions were also a profession that could be exchanged for with merit points. After becoming a deity position, one would inherit the power of rules. For some creatures with insufficient talent, this was an opportunity to soar into the sky. However, one needed talent to earn merit points. Void Boundary Gods and Void Boundary Great Emperors were one of the deity positions. What was even more ridiculous was that the divine ranges would also recruit clan leaders and divine range lords. The fate of all divine ranges was connected. If a divine range master died and they couldn't find a strong candidate, they would recruit divine range masters from the vocation palace. This vocation had extremely high requirements for cultivation, and the vocation palace would also consider the candidate's character. In other words, in the Kunlun Origin Court, as long as one had enough merit points, one could become anything. Except for one. The sovereign. After half an hour, they finally arrived at the vocation palace. The vocation palace covered an area of a few hundred miles. It was majestic and towering. Just the gate alone was 500 meters tall, and there was more than one gate. Countless creatures walked in and out in an endless stream. After the two entered the palace, Zhou Xuanji's gaze swept across the walls on both sides. He scanned the walls with his divine will, and as soon as he touched the walls, countless memories flooded into his mind. They were all about the introductions of various professions. All professions had aptitude requirements. He could choose from 12-star aptitude directly. There were hundreds of deity positions, and one could even become an origin city lord. But there were specific requirements for cultivation. Every creature can choose 3 professions. You can choose the one you like the first time. But when you choose the second profession, the required merit points will be doubled. Qingjiu's voice resounded in Zhou Xuanji's ears. He had also made up his mind. He planned to become a Void Boundary War God. This profession had a higher status than Void Boundary God. It specialized in hunting people who trespassed into the Kunlun Origin Court and capturing traders who escaped from the Kunlun Origin Court. Occasionally, it could also help to open up new universes. With the Kunlun Origin Court as the center, The universe was constantly expanding. New universes had to be explored by void boundary war gods and registered. They were like commodities that could be exchanged for with merit points. This profession was convenient for him to go out and fight. There were 2 requirements to become a void boundary war god. One had to reach the Tao ancestor realm and have 7-star aptitude or 9-star aptitude in disregard cultivation. Zhou Xuanji belonged to the latter. He told Qingjiu about his idea. Void boundary war god? This deity position is indeed not bad. I need to find a void boundary deity position officer to assess it. There is a void boundary deity position officer in this vocation palace, Qingjiu replied. After that, he brought Zhou Xuanji to find a void boundary deity position officer. The vocation palace was huge and had many side palaces. Each side palace represented a different profession. Some of the side palaces were crowded, while some were deserted. They came to the void boundary war god's side palace. There were 12 people in line, both men and women. Their cultivations were unfathomable. They were all Tao ancestors. Zhou Xuanji and Qingjiu's arrival attracted their attention. An overlord saint and a Tao-treading saint? The Tao ancestors raised their eyebrows slightly. They thought that they had gone to the wrong side palace. One of them said, "This is the vocation palace for void boundary war god." The nearby divine ranges rarely had geniuses with 9-star aptitude and above. There was one recently, a 12-star genius from the Longbow divine range. But he was only one and he was cultivating hard in the Tao Tower. Hold on. Zhou Xuanji? The 12 Tao ancestors opened their eyes wide and sized Zhou Xuanji up. They had all seen Zhou Xuanji's portrait, but they did not pay much attention to it back then. Now that they took a closer look, Zhou Xuanji's face had completely merged with their memories. Qingjiu bowed to them and said to Zhou Xuanji, "Senior, I will wait for you outside." After that, Qingjiu turned around and left. Zhou Xuanji walked to the back of the line and nodded slightly to the 12 Tao ancestors. In front of him was a lady in a red palace dress. She had a delicate face and a beaded red jade crown. She asked softly, "Are you the rumored Zhou Xuanji?" Chapter 667. My name is indeed Zhou Xuanji. It's not worth mentioning. Zhou Xuanji nodded humbly, which made the 12 Tao ancestors look at each other in dismay. They did not expect this 12-star genius to be so low profile and not arrogant at all. And so, they began chatting. They were naturally curious about a 12-star genius, but they did not put on airs. As long as Zhou Xuanji did not die, he would surpass them sooner or later. Zhou Xuanji was willing to make friends with them. One more friend was better than one more enemy. Moreover, these people were not weak. These 12 Tao ancestors came from different divine ranges. It was either their second or third time choosing their vocations. In Kunlun Origin Court, other than the first vocation assessment that did not require merit points, the other 2 required merit points even if one was qualified. Of course, most living beings did not have enough talent and cultivation to choose a good vocation for the first time, so merit points were still needed. Not everyone was as talented as Zhou Xuanji. After a round of conversation, Zhou Xuanji got to know them. The most powerful one was a man named Yi Jun. He was in the top 10 of the breakthrough ranking not long ago. He came from the Tiangang divine range, which was very close to the top 1000 divine ranges. It was considered the most powerful divine range here. Yi Jun looked very young and elegant. He was very friendly to Zhou Xuanji, as though he wanted to become sworn brothers with Zhou Xuanji. The calmest one was called Su Huang. He was dressed in black and looked like he was in his early 30s. He had a faint stubble on the side of his mouth and a stern face. He sized Zhou Xuanji up quietly with sharp eyes. The other Tao ancestors did not leave a deep impression on Zhou Xuanji. They were not familiar with each other either. Although your cultivation is not high, your aptitude is outstanding. Passing the test is almost a done deal. The one who spoke was the female Tao ancestor in a red dress in front of Zhou Xuanji. Her name was Nangong Jiayin. She smiled gently. Zhou Xuanji smiled softly and said, "Thank you for your kind words." The void boundary deity position officer wore a black robe with purple threads and a hat. It was pitch black inside and his face could not be seen. He looked like a ghost. There was an inner hall behind him. After registration, one could enter the inner hall. Soon it was Zhou Xuanji's turn. He took out his identity token. 12-star talent. You're not bad. Go in. The void boundary deity position officer stuck Zhou Xuanji's identity token on the golden mirror on his left hand and let him in. Zhou Xuanji put away his identity medallion and walked toward the gate of the inner palace. The creatures that came in later were secretly shocked. He was the 12-star genius, Zhou Xuanji? After entering the inner palace, Zhou Xuanji saw dozens of people waiting. The inner hall was brightly lit. Streaks of light and shadows flowed on the walls like movie projections, telling different stories about the emptiness boundary martial god. Zhou Xuanji attracted everyone's attention as soon as he came in. At this moment, the inner hall suddenly trembled violently. A strong light burst from the ground, and immediately after, they were teleported out. Zhou Xuanji saw the origin city shrinking rapidly. The Kunlun universe appeared before his eyes. Divine ranges that looked like pillars that supported the heavens came into view. They were rising rapidly. Nangong Jian walked to his side and said with a chuckle, "Don't be nervous. We're going to the Void Boundary Palace next. Maybe we can become a team in the future." Zhou Xuanji looked at her and asked curiously, "Team?" Nangong Jian nodded and said, "Just like the Void Boundary 13 Emperors, the Void Boundary War Gods also form teams of 13. At the same time, we can control 13 Void Boundary Great Emperors, and above us is the Void Boundary Heavenly Venerate." Zhou Xuanji was intrigued and asked, "What about Void Boundary God? You can't control it?" He still remembered the feeling when he looked up at the Void Boundary God in the cauldron. There is only one Emptiness Realm God in an Emptiness Realm. They don't belong to any divine range. They are basically full-time guards. When we arrive at their Emptiness Realm, we can order them, but we can't directly take them as our subordinates. Nangong Jian replied with a smile, enlightening Zhou Xuanji. He remembered Qingjiu saying that there was more than one void realm outside the Kunlun Origin Court. With the Kunlun Origin Court as the center, different areas of the void were divided into different directions. From top to bottom, the void between all the universes was controlled by the void returning realm gods. They were like the security guards of the neighborhood, and the surrounding universe lords could ask them for help. The status of void boundary war gods was higher than that of void boundary gods, and they had more freedom. The surrounding Dao Fathers all began to chat idly. Zhou Xuanji looked up and saw a majestic sea of fog at the end of the beam. Lightning flashed and thunder roared, and he could vaguely see the silhouette of a palace. Not long after, they entered the Void Boundary Palace from the bottom. After landing, there were noises coming from all directions. Zhou Xuanji turned around and saw that there were more than 500 people. He clicked his tongue in amazement. So many Dao ancestors were competing for Void Boundary War God in just one day? How many Void Boundary War Gods were there? How many Dao ancestors were there in the entire Kunlun Origin Court? At this moment, Zhou Xuanji's heart was in turmoil. He suddenly realized that he was still a frog in the well and underestimated the power of the Kunlun Origin Court. Silence. A majestic and domineering voice came and everyone shut up in shock. Zhou Xuanji looked up and saw a black-robed figure who looked like a void boundary deity position official levitating in the air. Now divide into teams. 13 to a team. If you fail to form a team, you will be eliminated immediately. The black-robed figure continued and everyone began to move out in shock. Nangong Jian held Zhou Xuanji's arm and said with a smile, "Little brother, let's go together." Yi Jun, who was not far away, nodded at Zhou Xuanji. Su Huang walked over as well. The four of them gathered together, waiting for the other Dao ancestors to join. Some Dao ancestors that they knew in the queue also joined. Yi Jun did not reject them. Unknowingly he became the leader. Time passed quickly. Soon they formed a team of 13 people. Zhou Xuanji waited quietly. In the entire hall, his cultivation was the weakest. Other than them there were some Dao-treading saints. According to Nangong Jian, those guys had a strong background and could buy a deity position with merit points. Wealth could move gods. It was suitable in many places. Finally, 11 creatures failed to form a team. They were expelled by the black-robed figure and sent back to their respective origin cities. Next you will take the test one by one. After the test you will form a new team. If anyone fails to form a team, it will still be considered as a failure, the black-robed figure said as he landed on the ground. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. This move was really vicious. The first time they formed a team there might be friction which would lead to the second time they formed a team. The first time they formed a team there might be friction which would lead to the second time they formed a team, and some creatures' leading positions would change. The first time they formed a team there might be friction which would lead to the second time they formed a team. No hurry. Let's wait for the test first, Yi Jun said to his team members with a smile. He looked very confident. Other than Zhou Xuanji, everyone in this team was a Dao ancestor. Moreover, he knew all of them and knew whether they had enough merit points. The other Dao ancestors who had not met Zhou Xuanji came up and chatted with him. The atmosphere was very harmonious. Chapter 668. One Dao father after another took the trial and most passed. Zhou Xuanji's team was not the last to be assessed and soon it was his turn. The Void Boundary Deity Position officer looked at Zhou Xuanji and said, 12-star talent, pass directly. You can become a Void Boundary War God. After that, the Void Boundary Deity Position official returned Zhou Xuanji's identity medallion to him, indicating that he could leave. Zhou Xuanji was a little stunned before he walked over. Wasn't this a little too easy? It seemed like the sign of a 12-star aptitude was really impressive. He was in a good mood and walked over to Yi Jun and Nangong Jiang. In the end, no one failed the test. Zhou Xuanji witnessed the amount of merit points they were exchanging. It was an astronomical number, as if there were 9 zeros. Next, split up and stand in line. Keep a distance of at least 15 feet from each other and wait for the Void Boundary Empyrean to come and claim you. After saying this, the Emptiness Boundary Deity Position official disappeared into thin air. The atmosphere in the Emptiness Boundary Palace became harmonious. From now on, they would all be Emptiness Boundary War Immortals, and they would see each other frequently. Naturally, they had to build a good relationship with each other. Although Zhou Xuanji's cultivation was the lowest, the number of people who tried to hit on him was one of the highest. He smiled and nodded at these people's self-introductions. His attitude made the Dao ancestors very satisfied with him. This genius really knew how to conduct himself. Those Dao-treading saints were a little dissatisfied. They became Void Boundary War Gods not because of their talent but because of merit points. So, most of them were pampered since childhood and were used to seeing geniuses. They were not interested in Zhou Xuanji. Time ticked by. Soon, a vast and boundless aura descended. Everyone looked up and saw a burly man burning with dark blue flames floating in the air. His arms were crossed in front of his chest, and he wore a mighty armor with a black silk scarf wrapped around his shoulder. He was expressionless and wore an iron helmet that looked like a tiger's head. He looked down at the team below and said, I am Heavenly Sage Jin Yan. Zhou Xuanji's team, come out. Hearing this, everyone turned to look at Zhou Xuanji with envy in their eyes. Heavenly Sage Jin Yan's reputation was not small. His strength surpassed that of Dao ancestor. When Zhou Xuanji was in the Yu family, the servants had mentioned the legend of Heavenly Sage Jin Yan. He had lived for countless years and defeated countless experts. He was known as the Sun Ancestor God. Zhou Xuanji and the others immediately stepped forward. Yi Jun cupped his fists and said, Sky Master, we will. Heavenly Sage Zhen Yan naturally recognized Zhou Xuanji. His cultivation was really eye-catching in the Void Boundary Palace. From now on you are my subordinates. Heavenly Sage Zhen Yan said in a deep voice, and with a wave of his right hand, he took Zhou Xuanji and the others away. As soon as they disappeared, the Void Boundary Palace instantly exploded. That's Empyrean Zhen Yan, one of the most powerful Void Realm Heavenly Venerables. This is a 12-star aptitude. If it were me, I would also snatch it. Zhou Xuanji has soared to the sky. In the future, with the protection of Heavenly Sage Zhen Yan, even the Longbow Divine Range will have to listen to him. We have to make friends with him in the future. That's right. Apart from those ancient existences, it's hard to find a 12-star genius every 10,000 years. Moreover, he's from another universe. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes again and found himself on a tall tower. In front of him was a boundless starry sky, and below him was a dense fog. Looking up, he could only see a boundless expanse. 12 people, including Yi Jun, Nangong Jian, and Su Huang, stood near him. At the edge of the railing, Heavenly Sage Jin Yan's back was facing them, making them afraid to speak. From now on you will be a team. You will live and die together. I hope you can be tolerant of each other because the missions you will face are also very serious. The stronger your teammates, the greater your chances of survival. Every mission you will get the same merit points. For special situations such as when the whole team is on the verge of extinction and one of you turns the tide, under the recommendation of the whole team, you will get the most merit points in the mission reward, Heavenly Sage Zhen Yan said slowly. Heavenly Sage Zhen Yan said slowly as he turned to look at Zhou Xuanji and the others. Zhou Xuanji's mind was filled with the captives and mission rewards of Void Boundary War God. Every year he would get 10,000 merit points, not including the merit points from missions. And the mission rewards accounted for the majority of the Void Boundary War God's income. Some missions could give hundreds of millions of merit points, at least 100,000. This also showed that the position of Void Boundary War God was very dangerous. Next, Heavenly Sage Jin Yen asked Zhou Xuanji and the others to take out their identity cards. He then slapped their cards and returned them to them. In the next year I will choose missions for you. You have to be prepared when you go back. Your identity cards have been branded with the identity of Void Boundary War God. You can contact each other through the imprint of Void Boundary War God. Remember, don't use your power to bully the weak, understand? Heavenly Sage Jin Yen glanced at Zhou Xuanji and the others and said word by word. His eyes didn't stop on Zhou Xuanji. It seemed that Zhou Xuanji didn't attract his attention. Understood. Everyone responded in unison. Heavenly Sage Jin Yen nodded with satisfaction and said, "You will walk from the back later. This is the mission tower. You can learn about it." In addition to the first mission, you can also choose your own missions when you are free in the future. Remember, any mission must be based on the team. After saying this, Heavenly Sage Zhen Yen disappeared. As soon as he disappeared, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Yi Jun smiled and said, "From now on, everyone should be more tolerant of each other. Who knows when we might be saved by each other." As soon as he said this, everyone burst into laughter. Afterward, they walked toward the gate behind them while chatting. The mission tower was very big. It was very similar to the Dao Tower. The stairs spiraled down along the wall. It was about 10 feet wide. Various missions were reflected on the wall. One had to use their identity to accept the mission. As long as one person accepted the mission would also appear on the ID card of the entire team. Zhou Xuanji was very low-key. Although he had a 12-star aptitude, it was impossible for him to be the leader of the team. The gap between his cultivation and that of his teammates was too big. With Yi Jun and Nangong Jiayin taking care of him, he wasn't left out. Along the way, Zhou Xuanji saw all kinds of missions. These missions involved many strange mythical existences. Most of them were capture missions. They also indicated their strength. But this strength was not necessarily accurate. After a full 2 hours, they finally reached the first floor. Along the way, they encountered many teams. Many powerhouses were looking at Zhou Xuanji in astonishment. Because Overlord Saint cultivation was really rare. They came to the teleportation gate and returned to their respective cloud cities one by one. Zhou Xuanji, Yi Jun, Nangong Jiayin, and Su Huang came from the same origin city. So they could teleport together. In the teleportation array, Nangong Jiayin smiled and said, "Little brother, I can protect you when the time comes." Zhou Xuanji shook his head and replied with a smile, "Don't worry, I have the power to protect myself. I chose this god position because I want to become stronger." Yi Jun teased, "Fairy Nangong, you are so attentive to him. Could it be that you have feelings for him?" Chapter 669. In the face of Yi Jun's teasing, Nangong Jiayin raised her eyebrows and said with a smile, "Little brother Xuanji is talented and handsome. So what if I have feelings for him?" When the other Dao ancestors heard this, they also laughed. Having cultivated to this point, they had seen all kinds of stunning beauties, so they weren't moved by Nangong Jiayin's beauty and didn't take her words seriously. This woman was only interested in Zhou Xuanji's talent. Zhou Xuanji maintained his smile and did not reply. He also didn't fancy Nangong Jiayin. He felt that it was enough to accept Xian Xianghua. Only God knew how old Nangong Jiayin was. Compared to her, Xian Xianghua was definitely not worth mentioning. In the Kunlun origin court, Xian Xianghua was like a young girl. Very quickly they returned to the origin city. After walking out of the Void Boundary War God Temple, Chengjiu greeted him. Zhou Xuanji said goodbye to his teammates and left with Chengjiu. "Senior, congratulations on becoming an Emptiness Boundary War God. You are also the only Emptiness Boundary War God in our Longbow Divine range," Chengjiu said respectfully. There weren't many Dao ancestors in the Longbow Divine range, and the Void Boundary War God was very dangerous. Those Dao ancestors weren't willing to take the risk, not to mention that there were other occupations that were more suitable for them. Zhou Xuanji nodded lightly and smiled, "Let's go back to the Yu clan. I want to see my 3 subordinates." He planned to let Zhou Shaoxian, Jiang Shui, Xian Xianghua, and the others take root in the Kunlun origin court. He would have to trouble the Longbow Divine range to help him register his identity. This matter shouldn't be too difficult. But before that, Jiang Shui and the others had to raise their cultivation to the Saint Realm. Even the worst had to be reaching Heaven level 10. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to be eliminated. Along the way he told Qingjiu about what had happened. Qingjiu patted his chest and promised that it was only a small matter and that he would immediately report it to the Longbow ancestor after they returned. There were so many living beings in the Longbow Divine Range that it wouldn't be a problem to have a few hundred more people. Of course, the Longbow Divine Range wouldn't be able to handle all the creatures in the Lotus World. This would also attract the attention of the Origin Court. Longbow Divine Range Yu Clan. Zhou Xuanji returned to the courtyard. Qiu Hu, Xing Tiandao and Si Mingyan sensed his aura and walked out of their rooms. They were very excited because they had heard of Zhou Xuanji's might in the Origin City. Zhou Xuanji was in a good mood. He sat in the pavilion with them and told them about what had happened during this period of time. Knowing that Zhou Xuanji had already surpassed the Void Boundary God and the Void Boundary 13 Emperors, the three were dumbfounded. They couldn't come back to their senses for a long time. This kid was flying too fast. After coming to the Kunlun Origin Court, he seemed to have changed into a completely different person. He rushed all the way with unstoppable momentum. Now the results he had achieved were unimaginable. Zhou Xuanji's experience stimulated the three of them. They swore that they would work hard to cultivate. After they broke through to the Saint Realm, they would head to the Origin City to choose a profession and develop themselves. After chatting for 2 hours, Zhou Xuanji returned to his room. He had demon god Nanming take the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus and went to Skyfall to gather Zhou Shaoxian, Jiang Shui, Xian Xianghua, Lady Zhao Xian, Xiao Jinghong and the others. Now, Earth and Skyfall had built a teleportation formation. This included the demon world, which made it easier for them to travel. Father, are there any wonderful adventures that you want to tell us about recently? Zhou Shaoxian asked excitedly. The others were also looking forward to it. The little black snake flicked his forked tongue and chuckled, "Don't tell me you met Xian Xianghua again?" Hearing this, Jiang Shui and Xian Xianghua glared at him at the same time. Their murderous aura locked onto him, which scared him so much that he shivered and hid behind Chongming Demon Monarch. Zhou Xuanji began telling them about his experiences. From the aptitude test to the Great Elimination, to the Dao Tower Breakthrough Ranking, and finally to the Void Boundary War God test. Everyone's blood boiled as they listened. Awesome. Beixiao Wangjian clenched his fists and said excitedly. Qin Bantian, Lin Chang'e, Ning Zifeng, and the others could not help but feel their blood boiling. It had only been a short time, and Zhou Xuanji's status had already surpassed the Universe Lord Gods. The power and richness of the Kunlun Origin Court had opened the door to a new world for them. Revered teacher, are you bringing us to the Kunlun Origin Court? Xiao Jinghong asked, holding back his excitement. The others also looked at Zhou Xuanji expectantly. Zhou Xuanji nodded with a smile and said, "Wait until you break through to the Saint Realm. Otherwise, you will not even be able to pass the lowest Great Elimination. In the future, I will improve the spiritual qi of the various worlds in the Lotus and strive to make the spiritual qi here reach the level of the Kunlun Origin Court." Everyone nodded, their eyes filled with desire. They also wanted to see what the Kunlun Origin Court was like with their own eyes. Following this, Zhou Xuanji gathered the entire Emperor Sword Court and planned to lead all of the court's disciples in cultivation. He continued to use his sword master haki to lead tens of millions of disciples in sword training while speaking about the Great Tao's voice. To Emperor Sword Court's disciples, this was a great opportunity. Now Zhou Xuanji was an Overlord Saint level 8. His body was about to transform into a Great Tao body. 7 days later he returned to the Kunlun Origin Court because someone had come looking for him. He put away demon god Nanming and the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus before walking out of the house. Yu Xinzhong and Yu Zhongxiu stood in the courtyard. Little friend Xianji, the Void Boundary God of the nearby region, has brought the Void Boundary 13 Emperors to visit you. He said that he had a misunderstanding with you and wants to apologize. He is currently receiving you in the Qin Hall. You can go and meet him. With the support of our Longbow Divine Range, if you want him to kneel, he must kneel. Yu Xinzhong smiled and explained his background. Zhou Xuanji heard him and raised his brow. Qiu Hu and the other two rushed out excitedly. They said they wanted to see it too. Zhou Xuanji had no objections. The group flew toward the Qin Hall. The Qin Hall was located in the upper level of the Longbow Divine Range. It was a hall for receiving guests. Of course, one had to have a certain status to enter the Qin Hall. After a while, they quickly came to the Qin Hall. Zhou Xuanji followed Yu Xinzhong inside and immediately saw the Void Boundary God's burly figure. Behind him were 13 figures kneeling. They were the Void Boundary 13 Emperors. Other than them, he also saw 5 other people. Buddha Yangling, Barbarian God Huangluo, Old Beggar, Su Qing and Gu Tianxia. Barbarian God Huangluo was very excited. He knelt down immediately and shouted, "Master!" He looked like he was about to cry. He didn't look like a heavenly saint at all. Qiu Hu covered his face and cursed, "So embarrassing." The corner of Xing Tiandao's mouth couldn't help but twitch. Void Boundary God turned around and looked at Zhou Xuanji. The Void Boundary 13 emperors trembled and didn't dare to turn their heads. Sitting on the main seat was a tall middle-aged man. He was also one of the Longbow Divine Range's Dao ancestors. He was very powerful. Seeing Zhou Xuanji, he got up and said with a smile, "Little friend Xuanji, you are finally here. I am the Longbow Divine Range's law enforcement elder. You can call me Old Qian." Facing the hope of the Longbow Divine Range, even though Old Qian was a Dao ancestor, he had to welcome him with a smile. This scene made the old beggar Buddha Yangling and the others feel even more complicated. When they first met Old Qian gave them a sense of oppression without being angry. But when they saw Zhou Xuanji, it was as if he had become another person, which greatly shocked them. Chapter 670. Zhou Xuanji cupped his fist and bowed to Old Qian. Then he walked to the front and turned to face the Void Boundary God and the Void Boundary 13 emperors. His eyes locked onto the Flame Emperor and Water Emperor. The two emperors quickly lowered their heads in fear, not daring to look him in the eye. Elder Qian smiled and stroked his beard, not saying a word. Yu Xinzhong and Yu Zhongxiu sized up the Void Boundary 13 emperors curiously. What kind of hatred did the Void Boundary God have to personally pay a visit? When Qiu Hu, Xing Tiandao, and Si Mingyan saw the kneeling Void Boundary 13 emperors, they felt indescribably carefree. It was the same for Barbarian God Huangluo and Buddha Yangling. Weren't you very arrogant and haughty before? You're only admitting your mistake now that you're kneeling? Gu Tianxia looked at Zhou Xuanji with a complicated expression. Now he could not see through Zhou Xuanji at all. If he had known this would happen, he would have followed Zhou Xuanji instead of the old beggar. Among those present, the old beggar had the most complicated feelings. He was originally from the Kunlun origin court, so he knew what a 12-star aptitude represented. This kid, the old beggar smiled bitterly. It was not the first time that he had misjudged someone, but it was the first time that he had underestimated his own disciple. Zhou Xuanji looked up at Void Boundary God and asked, "How do you want to end this?" The Void Boundary God's expression was calm as he said, "I will return these people to you and pay 2 million merit points. How about it?" 2 million merit points was a huge fortune for most living beings. Zhou Xuanji smiled with squinted eyes, "Sure, but I want to hear them apologize to me personally. It has to be sincere." Speaking of which, the Void Boundary 13 emperors had their reasons for doing this. They were also carrying out a mission and weren't really targeting him. However, he had almost died in the hands of the Void Boundary 13 emperors and the Void Boundary God. He couldn't just ignore it. Upon hearing this, the Void Boundary God glared at the Void Boundary 13 emperors and shouted, "What are you waiting for?" After saying this, he bowed to Zhou Xuanji with cupped fists and said, "Back then we were short-sighted and offended you. Please forgive us, Senior. We are ignorant and have offended you. Senior, please forgive us." The Void Boundary 13 emperors shouted in unison. Apart from the Flame Emperor and the Water Emperor, the other great emperors were slightly upset. Before coming, they did not even know what Zhou Xuanji looked like. At this point, they could only bow their heads. Next, Void Boundary God took out his ID card and transferred 2 million merit points to Zhou Xuanji's ID card. This was the end of this grudge. Before he left, Zhou Xuanji instructed the Void Boundary God, "Help me investigate old ancestor Yin Xin. I will settle the score with him personally." Although it was a blessing in disguise, he still remembered that Patriarch Yin Xin was the one who fed him the poison. If Barbaric Ultimate God hadn't helped him get rid of the poison, he wouldn't have known about it. Yes. The Void Boundary God nodded respectfully and left with the Void Boundary 13 emperors. Elder Qian praised, "Not bad, you didn't shed all pretense of cordiality. When he was as young as Zhou Xuanji, he might have forced Zhou Xuanji to become his mortal enemy. However, it was impossible to kill a Void Boundary God. Unless it was in a place that no one knew." Zhou Xuanji gave a slight smile and exchanged some pleasantries with Old Qian before taking the old beggar and the others away. "From now on you will follow me. Do you have any objections?" Zhou Xuanji walked in front and asked. Barbarian God Huangluo immediately smiled and said, "That's naturally for the best. This is our fortune." Buddha Yangling sighed and said nothing. The old beggar kept silent. He looked awkward and didn't know what to say. Zhou Xuanji asked Yu Xinzhong to register the 5's ID cards before sending them to his residence in the Yu family. Yu Xinzhong didn't refuse. He only felt that it was a trivial matter. On the same day, Zhou Xuanji went to the origin city alone to continue cultivating. Just as he flew out of the longbow divine range, Cheng Jiu caught up with him. Zhou Xuanji didn't refuse and let him follow. After arriving at the previous Dao Tower, Zhou Xuanji entered a 4-star Dao room and began cultivating. As usual, he took out the 4 demon god bodies and the 24-rank deep black lotus to let them absorb the spiritual qi here. He began absorbing the great Dao and cultivating the greatly divine suppressor technique. Time passed day by day. 2 months later. Analyzed that the sword owner has reached 514 years old. Gotcha started. Ding. Congratulations, the sword owner obtained Primordial Chaos, Inverted Book Sword, Glorious Gold, White God Sea-Piercing Sword. The sword spirit's voice pulled Zhou Xuanji's thoughts back to reality. Finally, he got another Primordial Chaos legendary sword. He had yet to use the Primal Chaos Primal Beginning Sword. That sword required the cultivation of a 7th-level Overlord Saint, which he had already reached. He did not know what was so special about this primordial divine sword. Very soon, Inverted Book's information appeared before his eyes. Sword name, Inverted Book Sword level, Primeval description. The blade of the sword is like a book. It can reverse karma and sever the fate between living beings. It will be most effective if the other party doesn't notice it. You need to be at least a 9th-level Overlord Sage to use this sword. Reverse karma and cut off fate? Zhou Xuanji's eyes brightened. He felt that this sword was quite good. However, he was still one sky away from being able to use this sword. He couldn't help but think of a higher-grade divine sword. Ordinary or iron, bronze, silver, gold, amethyst, glorious gold, heavenly soul, intimidating spirit, celestial shaking, God slaying, Armageddon. Ancient gazing, disaster releasing, universe essence, overturning heavens, heaven span, 9 extremities, primordial chaos. Profound way, honored lord, vast sky, merging all life, court overturning. When are you going to play with this profound path divine sword? Could a supreme lord divine sword injure a Dao-treading venerable? Zhou Xuanji thought for a while before calming himself down and continuing to cultivate. At the same time, the spiritual qi in the lotus world was still growing. The violent spiritual qi in the Dao room seemed inexhaustible. No matter how much he absorbed, he didn't need to worry about alarming the Dao tower. Time flew. After half a year, Zhou Xuanji finally broke through to 9th-level Overlord Sage. The cultivation of his 4 demon god bodies had reached 6th-level Overlord Sage. Feeling refreshed, he packed up his things and walked out of the 4-star Dao room. As soon as he came to the first floor, he saw a familiar figure. Nangong Jian. Why is this woman here? Sensing his aura, Nangong Jian turned around and waved at him. Zhou Xuanji walked over and greeted, Fairy Nangong, long time no see. Nangong Jian covered her mouth and smiled, Little brother, I am here to look for you. Our first void boundary mission is coming soon. Are you ready? Ready? Zhou Xuanji replied, I don't even know the specific mission. How can I prepare? Nangong Jian grabbed his arm and pulled him out. Zhou Xuanji slightly furrowed his brow and broke free from her hand without leaving a trace. The two walked under a big tree on the street. Nangong Jian flipped her right hand, and a jade slip appeared in her palm. She said, This is our mission. I have special channels to get the information in advance. After the Void Boundary Heavenly Sovereign selects the mission for us, he will register it first. But the specific execution time is up to him. Zhou Xuanji looked at her in surprise. This woman has already reached the Void Boundary Heavenly Sovereign level? He took the jade slip and scanned it with his divine sense. The next moment, the jade pendant turned into countless light stars and drilled into his mind, turning into memories. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.